Hello everyone. Welcome to the Ocean Sound Storytelling Channel. I am the storyteller, and today I am so happy to be with you. You may be curled up under a blanket or listening with your ears on a soft pillow. Wherever you are, whatever the time, thank you for being here. Before we begin with an interesting story, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, so I know you enjoy relaxing moments like this. Where are you from? Send me a little hello in the comments. I would love to know which corner of the world you are listening from. Now, relax your body. Close your eyes and let the gentle waves take you into a gentle story, a little strange, a little mysterious, but warm enough to lull you to sleep all night long. So, are you ready? Tonight's story begins. Guilty party. 2.5 hours after touching down in Innsbruck and boarding the SUV that waited to greet her, Amelia Carver's overnight expedition came to an end at a squat, crumbling structure in the rugged terrain of Salmanatal Valley, from Dublin to Austria to Liechtenstein, from 12 a.m. to 6, from civilization to desolation, and she still didn't know if it was worth it. Looking at the building, little more than an abandoned mound of concrete, it was difficult to see how it could be. She hadn't accomplished anything of note since last year. She wasn't expecting to receive any awards. There were no contemporaries she still wanted to meet, and even if, by some chance, she was to be acknowledged for her endeavors, she had no desire to receive a tacky statue. Not that it mattered. She was contracted to be here, so she was, at least this year, promised to be different, since Bertram was introducing something new, and she'd made her own assumptions about what that meant. A special guest, an unexpected attendee, one that would be worth turning up for. If it was him. So now, you're not gonna throw me a bone? She asked the driver as he stopped by the secret military installation, which has been constructed by Nazi forces during World War II. Not so much as a nod or shake of the head, the driver, mannequin-like in black suit and mirrored sunglasses, said precisely as many words as he'd said since collecting her at the airport. A sum total of 0. Cool, said his fare, adjusting the Venetian half-mask that covered the left of her face before popping the passenger door, the fabric of her crimson gown rustling as she got out. Good talk. Thanks for the riveting repartee. Out of the vehicle, in the pale morning light, Amelia shut the door and straightened her skirt. Gravel spat like an angry rattlesnake as the driver stomped the gas and crunched away. Rude, said Amelia, tottering on heels towards the entrance. A rusted steel door partially concealed by tangled vines. Exactly the kind of place she wanted to spend the first evening of the last month of the year, when she could be curled up watching TV. But here she was, pushing through a squealing slab of history to meet another expressionless brute, who was as conversational as the one who'd dropped her off. Hey, she said, as the passage she'd entered closed around her. last again? I'm always late. Shucks. The grunt showed no emotion while placing a barcode scanner type device against the scar on her neck, allowing a beep to confirm her identity. While he did this, she removed her phone from her clutch and tapped on it to display the invite she'd received, which was also scanned and accepted. Once done, the guard stepped aside, allowing her access to a drape-covered door. "Thanks," Amelia said, maintaining eye contact with the goon while adjusting her breasts. "So, is it true? Is it Abyss?" No response. The bouncer flicked his eyes back to the wall. Amelia sighed and pulled the drape aside, stepping into a better lit chamber that she lost sight of immediately when a pair of calloused hands fell over her eyes. "Guess who?" came a gravelly voice, laced with playful menace. Amelia peeled the hands away and turned to face their owner. A beast of a man wearing jeans, a white cotton waistcoat, and a wolf's head mask. Blue eyes stared from its sockets, his lips curled up within its maw. Wolfclaw, always a pleasure. Of all the associates she'd met since joining the network, Wolfclaw was the one she liked most. He had a sense of humor to go with his violent nature and was capable of faking social niceties. "Carver," he greeted. "Thought it was you I heard coming in behind me, looking pasty as ever. Still not getting any sun? Still got the same machete?" Amelia asked, peering over his shoulder at the curved weapon strapped to his back. "Thought it might have broke from overuse. Heard it's taken 30 heads this year. Not jealous. Old Betsy's stronger than she looks." The masked man grinned. "What about you? I remember you saying last year how your kill count was too low. Any success ramping things up? In Ireland, not as much as I'd like," she said, rolling her visible eye, the taped-up hole of her masquerade mask concealing the empty socket of the other. "Came in with a solid 13, 3 more than last year, but shy of the 20 I wanted. An improvement is an improvement, and you are a more discerning kind of killer. Targeting assholes who mock the less fortunate and lack empathy is a task in and of itself. Unless you're starting to feel less philanthropic." "Nope." Amelia shook her head, turning away from the wolf-headed killer. "If I'm compelled to get my hands dirty, may as well clean some shit up. Anyway, never mind that. We better grab seats if there's any left. Bertram starts on time, and we're late." The interior of the chamber had been prepared for Bertram's event. Rows of chairs arranged before a makeshift stage holding a podium. Spotlights casting shadows on red curtained walls. The seats were occupied by figures in various states, some in their work clothes, boiler suits, leather aprons, lab coats, military fatigues. Others in more casual attire, some sporting face coverings, canvas bags, chrome constructions, cliched hockey masks, or things that had been assembled from strips of flesh. Some displaying faces not even mothers could love, but all unmistakably killers. "Indeed," said Wolfclaw, following Amelia towards the front, where she'd spotted a pair of vacant seats. "Wouldn't do to be kicked out when I'm in with a chance of best massacre. You deserve an award for that." Amelia nodded. "Speaking of awards, I guess you heard about the new one?" Wolfclaw said, turning into the front row behind her. "Lifetime Achievement Award. Arguably long overdue for a ceremony that honors psycho killers. Half-eyed fuckers are near immortal. The question is, who's the inaugural recipient?" Amelia finished, nodding at the motley crew of weird and wonderful murderers she passed as she made her way to a seat. "You know what they've been saying on Instagram?" "Well, it's got to be Abyss," Wolfclaw said, taking a seat alongside her. "How many times did he win Killer of the Year? 12? Does anyone have a better record? Not only that. Best dismemberment, most depraved violation, goriest cut, you name it, he got it. Every year for a decade, until he vanished. He's the GOAT. Would be an insult to give it to anyone else. The question is he alive? All the rumors that circulate about him being locked away by the government, retiring to live as a lumberjack, being turned into mints by a final girl. Fuck, Wolfclaw gasped as she organized her dress on her chair. "I know, the ultimate humiliation for serial slashers." "Not that," Wolfclaw interrupted, touching her arm. "That." Amelia followed his gaze to the left of the stage, where 3 men stood partially obscured behind curtains. 2 of Bertram's goons, and him, clad in an oil-stained pair of overalls, feet stuffed into boots that were coming apart, head concealed by a latex S&M hood, replete with zips, straps, and buckles. The 7-foot-tall, hulking form was unmistakably Abyss. The shifting, awkward posture, the way his arms flexed, the movement of his head, glitching like stop-motion animation. She'd only seen videos, but she knew it was him. Wolfclaw was squinting behind his mask as he studied the granddaddy of killers. "He's bulkier than I expected, taller. But look how they're restraining him. Is that a neck manacle connected to prods?" Amelia had noticed this too. But before she could consider it, the lights dimmed and the piped music came to a halt. A hush fell over the crowd, and all eyes went to the stage as the curtain on the right was thrown back, allowing a bearded man in a suit to stride out, beckoning applause, which he got in buckets from all, because this was their benefactor, Bertram Velasco, long-serving head of the serial killer network. Amelia took part in the adulation as he soaked it up. In the 5 years since he found her and signed her up to his club, she'd come to respect him like everyone else. Being selected was nothing short of an honor. It meant her killer credentials were on point. It meant, despite the exorbitant subscription fee Bertram charged for membership, that she had access to all SK network resources: anonymity, medical aid, protection, and sanctuary when required. Luckily, she hadn't needed to avail of much yet, being a small fish in the pond. A little treatment for wounds, some hacking to remove her image from CCTV footage. All in a day's work for the network. "Welcome, friends," Bertram said when the applause died down. "Delighted to see you all again. Our venue is a little less luxurious than usual, but there's a reason for that, one that will become clear soon. Before we start, I want to take a moment to say that this year's nominees for our various awards were highly impressive. Kill of the Year, Sickest Mutilation, Most Creative Execution. You've outdone yourselves, and I want to congratulate everyone for their efforts. You've made me proud, and, well, just well done." "Weird start," Wolfclaw whispered, and Amelia nodded. Bertram seemed more somber than usual. However, he blurted then, perking up as his eyes went to Abyss. "Before we get to that," a surprise, a murmur rippled through the crowd, and Amelia felt goosebumps on her arms. "As you know from my invite," their host went on, "we have a special award tonight. And along with it comes a special guest. There's been a lot of speculation online as to who it might be, with one particular name being mooted more than others. Well, I don't want to keep you or him waiting any longer, so let's kick things off with our first ever Lifetime Achievement Award. Won't you join me, please, in welcoming Abyss?" Applause filled the room as Abyss was guided out by the goons. His footsteps as he stomped to the podium were louder than the chants and cheers around her. But why was he secured like that? Was he here against his will? Was he a danger to his own kind? "I know this looks weird," said Bertram, as Abyss was brought to a halt alongside him, quivering as though volts flowed into his neck. But sadly, dear Abyss is not the force of nature he used to be. He's had to keep a low profile these last 10 years. 2 decades as the world's most prolific serial killer is something that can take a toll. He absorbed more pure guilt than anyone before him, and handled it like a trooper. But there's a limit to all things, and 10 years ago today, he reached his. He had to be put away for everyone's safety. Just one more kill would have broken him, released the guilt, and we weren't ready. "What's he talking about?" Wolfclaw hissed. Amelia shook her head. She had no idea, but whatever it was, it had the potential to be epic. As he spoke, Bertram retrieved an award from behind the podium. A grotesque creation made of twisted steel. "For you," he continued, presenting the award to the monster. With gratitude. But this isn't your true reward. A polished lump of metal in your hands is nothing but a weapon. I know what you'd really like is closure. Abyss closed his fist around the award, gripping it like a bludgeon, while Bertram raised an arm and clicked his fingers. Amelia sat up in her chair, watching the curtains at the back of the stage part and another suited mook wheel out a crate. "This is different," said Wolfclaw. "What's the old boy up to? Does everyone remember Diamond Lagoon, 1995? Abyss's most infamous rampage. He took out an entire settlement in one night. An incredible feat of savagery. 67 residents, 66 victims, because one slipped through the net. A plucky young girl. Don't you hate them? We've all been frustrated by one of those. For Abyss, though, in a 20-year reign of terror, she was the only one who ever got away. The only blemish in an otherwise spotless career. And guess what? Bertram moved to the edge of the stage as his man undid latches on the crate. "We have her here tonight." Gasps in the crowd as the guard opened the box and a disheveled woman fell out, barely getting her hands in front of her before hitting the floor. Her face was lined with age. Her hair was gray. She whimpered where she'd landed by Abyss, whose head was turned down as he watched. "No way," Amelia said, as Bertram and his goons walked off the stage. "Are we going to see a live kill?" "You're free, Abyss," Bertram called as he slipped through the curtains. "Let it go." The crowd had gotten to their feet, and Amelia joined them, all eyes on the scene, keen to see what would happen next. And what happened next was like watching a movie sped up. 2x, Abyss threw his head back and howled. The woman screamed up at his hood. Abyss drove the trophy into her skull. The onlookers in the crowd cheered and jumped. Amelia's mouth fell open. Wolfclaw whistled. Abyss turned to the crowd and started to shudder. Not from being electrocuted, from something else. What was it Bertram had said? Amelia wondered. One more kill would have broken him, released the guilt. The shuddering turned to convulsions, and Abyss roared. Not now in fury, but in pain. He staggered, his body shaking violently. His head jerked back, and with a sickening crack, it split open, ripping through latex and spilling blood and bone to the floor. 3x. Black mist poured from his mask. Smoky tendrils shot forth, snaking through the air and filling the room. Writhing, maleficent tentacles that multiplied and wriggled like worms before plunging into the heads of those below, squeezing screams from their lungs. Their bodies convulsed and their faces contorted as the guilt from Abyss took control. Amelia watched chaos unfold, beginning with Wolfclaw, who stared wide-eyed in horror from his mask as he took his machete, lifted it to his neck, and sliced through. Hot, scarlet liquid splattered her face as she looked away, her eye falling on the killers behind her, who were turning their weapons on themselves, tearing at flesh, gouging out eyes, ripping their own jaws off in a frenzy. 4X, tendrils of mist withdrew from falling bodies, returned to the hovering mass over Abyss's corpse. Amelia tottered, unsteady, on heels slipping in blood. The screams were abating. The crowd was diminishing. Not many remained on their feet. Not many continued to be overwhelmed by the guilt of their actions, encouraged by the fingers of mist that had entered their brains. All of their brains, even hers. And that's when she realized she too had been invaded. But she, alone, was still standing, with a tendril of smoke connecting her to the pulsating mass, which was slowly drifting towards her from the stage. Drifting, oozing, throbbing, shrinking as it flowed into her head, filling her mind with images of her victims, bullies, narcissists, sociopaths, bigots, gaslighters, abusers, jerks. Am I supposed to feel bad for killing them? Her inner voice queried. Am I supposed to break under the weight of massive guilt? And that's when someone hit. Pause. I knew it would be you. A voice behind her, Bertram's, said, and she turned, the last of the guilt devouring her soul. Thought we'd have more time to nurture your talent, but Abyss's willpower was waning. He was going to release it soon, one last murder or not. And it needed to happen in a controlled environment. It needed to feast after being locked away for so long. And it needed to choose a new host. What is it? Amelia asked, aware of fresh darkness inside her. A force as old as time, Bertram said, taking her hand. An insatiable force that needs to be fed. But keeping it fed is not easy. And keeping it restrained, even harder. You see what it does when it's not. But it takes a certain kind of person. Abyss was that person before. 30 years he held it, a record. But it fucked him up. He was a discerning killer too. Once upon a time, an idealist. He focused his darkness, like you, till he was chosen. What have you done to me? I'm sorry, Bertram said, leading her away from the carnage. As its guardian, I have to oversee the transference. It's never easy, but it's necessary. I do it to keep the world safe, believe it or not. Safe from unstoppable evil. It picked you today because you could hold it. But it's going to change you over time. It will naturally make you more feral, less controlled. A rampaging beast, if I'm honest. But it will also make you a legend. The best of the best. With the guilty conscience fueling you, you'll be Killer of the Year for as long as you want. And the next Lifetime Achievement Award will be yours. Amelia's mind was racing. His words sounded insane, but she could feel it. A growing hunger that demanded to be sated. A hunger that would make her a queen. "Then I suppose I have work to do," she said, her voice sharp, like the switchblade in her clutch. Bertram nodded. "And I've a new network to build. Welcome to your new life, Amelia Carver." "Glad to be here," she replied, accepting a kiss to her hand. "I look forward to carving a fresh abyss, a growing hunger. I don't remember how I died, but I remember the gnawing cold, a cold deeper than my bones that cut right into my soul. I was no longer myself when I awoke. I was only a husk of a man, something else entirely." The fire roared in the hearth. It was casting shadows on the wall that danced with a chaotic rhythm. No matter how intense the flame grew, I couldn't shake off the intensity that took over my body. My blood turned to ice, but my hunger grew like that flame, and just like the fire, it was all-consuming. I had tried to hunt, but that was not what my body craved. Only one thing could appease this insatiable hunger. I sharpened my knife, the steel grazing over the fine points over and over. The sound grated into my ear. I needed to eat, and I needed to eat soon. I wasn't sure how long I was going to last. I pulled myself from the fire, clutching my knife and my lifeline, and put on my coat and boots. The cracked mirror by the door only showed an empty shell, sunken black eyes, white pale skin, and bloodless lips. I pushed the cabin door open and sank into the blanket of snow that lined the forest. The world had withered in my isolation. The never-ending storm raged relentlessly outside. The eerie silence was only disrupted by the crunch of my boots. The trees had frozen in place, their bony branches reaching up to the gray abyss above. It would be a miracle if my traps had caught anything today. They hadn't for the last 3 days, and I could tell I was running out of time before I left this cabin and sought something more. My lips salivated at the thought of flesh, warm and soft, sinking into my teeth. I shook away the thought and rushed towards the first trap. Nothing. The second. Nothing. The third. Nothing. Then, a voice rattled in the distance. No, not in the distance, near my cabin. It was quiet at first, but then the sound echoed through the skeleton trees. "Hello, anyone? I need help." My heart pounded. If I go back, would that be it? I hesitated. I could resist. It was my mortality that I clung to with the kind of hope a small child clings to his dreams. I turned back to the traps to check the final one. The man called for help again, banging on the closed cabin door. That forbidden thought arose. I tried to pull myself away, but I could only imagine myself sinking my teeth into his soft flesh, warming my body with his sweet blood. I was starving, more than starving, empty. I looked towards the other traps, knowing it would be pointless to waste any more energy. Against my better judgment, I hurried towards the voice because leaving the man to freeze outside in this world would be no different than murder. I emerged from the tree line to see an outline of a man. The white from the snow blurred his figure, but he was alone and at my door. "Hello," he called again, as he walked over to the lone window on the side of the cabin. That wave of hope raced over me again. The longing for mortality whispered in my ear. The hunger subsided just for a bit as I found my voice. I had been silent for so long that it came out in a raspy mumble. "Hello." I raised my hand over my head to wave. A rusty and out-of-sync gesture. "Are you okay?" "Oh, thank God. Hello." He pressed his hands together. Was he happy? Scared? How long had I been out of practice in the art of socializing? I was out hunting and must have turned around. I have been out in the cold for some time. Do you have a phone I could use? My rusty muscles awkwardly formed a smile. The phone is out, but I can offer you a bed for the night. I approached him slowly, like prey, slower than I had approached my traps. Where are your hunting buddies? Should I expect them as well? Our party got split up. I am hoping they get out of here before the storm worsens. I pushed past the man, his scent forcing my stomach into a spiral. It would be so easy. I could do it here. One stab into his throat, one moment of indulgence, one mistake. Are you okay, sir? The man's eyes met mine. His eyes were so tame, I felt so wild. I forced my hand on the door and opened it. The man slowly walked through the door and saw the fire. His face relaxed. My name is Ben, by the way. Nice to meet you. I pulled off my coat, throwing it over the back of the chair, then flung my boots off, not caring where they landed. I would offer you food, but I don't have much myself. Oh, that's okay. I am just grateful for your hospitality. I have a couple more rations as well, if you need them. He followed my lead and took off his coat and boots, placing them on the hook beside the door. And you are? Who was I? I tried to search the depths of my mind. I reminded myself of my death, who I was in my old life. A chill worked up my spine. I would have to go with a lie. Silas. The name came out of my mouth in hesitation. You can take the bed upstairs. I can sleep on the couch. Thank you so much. He approached the fire and pushed his hand towards the flames. His sweet flesh singed the cabin. I gripped my knife and took 2 steps back. I had to resist. I could send him on his way after the storm passed. This little place you got here is cozy. How long have you been here for? Another question I had no answer to. It could have been weeks or years, another lie I had to conjure up. I tried not to make eye contact, just needed to get him upstairs and out of the house. I needed to fight this urge and pray for a decent meal in the traps tomorrow. A couple years, actually. He leaned closer to the fire. His smell encompassed the cabin even more. My daughter and wife would love it up here. I winced. Did I have a family? A daughter? Son? It was a blur, and I was starting not to care. I pushed my finger into the edge of the blade, trying to think of anything else. If you don't mind, I think I will be turning in for the night. Again, upstairs there is a bed. I gestured to the small stairs next to the kitchen. He nodded and disappeared upstairs. In the dead of night, I awoke to Ben snoring softly. The hunger surging. It had grown into its monster. I thought of the empty traps outside that would not fill any time soon, and the continuous snow that piled higher as time passed. I was going to starve out here. Ben was going to starve out here. I wasn't sure where I was, or where the nearest town was, and I dared go close to such a civilization, in fear of what would happen. I grabbed the knife out of my pocket and snuck upstairs. My breath fogged the cold air as I tried to tame my breathing. I was being too loud, chaotic, too wild. I could feel my body giving in, my beast within whispering louder. The voice promised relief, warmth, and satisfaction. I leaned over his body and pulled out my sharpened knife. The blade was ready for its kill after waiting for what seemed like centuries. It would be a mercy. Maybe the traps outside were empty, but this one had been set and tripped. By morning, the storm had passed. I stood in front of the deep hole that I frantically dug in the earth, blood staining the white frozen wasteland. My beast, the hunger, sated for now, but I feel no peace. the brief satisfaction that my prey gave me was fading quickly, I knew that he would demand more soon. I tossed the bones and other remains into the pit and fill it in, hiding all traces of my actions, for I am no longer human. I had died a long time ago, before Ben, before the season changed, before my memories were lost with time. I would no longer know the warmth of the world, unless that warmth was from the flesh of another body. My memories are forever gone in the abyss of time, and whatever or whoever I was before is now swallowed by the beast. I walked back to the cabin in defeat, the hunger stirring again, stronger this time. I catch the scent of something in the wind. It is sweet and delicate. I turn towards the tree line. A group of hikers, their voices carried through the trees. There would be no more resistance. I headed towards the voices, knife in hand, knowing that this time my hunger would be sated. The spook who sleuths my office was darker than FDR's fireside chats and twice as smoky. That's how I like it. Keeps the clients on their toes and the spirits at bay. Name's Roxy Hart, and I'm what you might call a supernatural tomfoolery private dick. Some folks get their knickers in a twist over that last word, but in my line of work, you gotta call a spade and a detective a dick. I kicked back in my chair, feet up on the desk, pondering life's great mysteries. Like why dames always fall for the wrong guy, or how spam manages to be both a wartime delicacy and the bane of future generations' inboxes. That's when she walked in, a real looker, the kind that'd make Betty Grable green with envy. "Are you the paranormal investigator?" she asked, her voice shakier than a GI on his first day in boot camp. I tipped my fedora back, giving her the once-over. "That's what it says on the door, dollface. What's your tale of woe?" She was a maid, worked up at the Wackerman estate. Seems the big cheese, Cornelius Wackerman III, had kicked the bucket under some hinky circumstances. As she spilled the beans, I reached into my trench coat, pulling out the ectoplasmic resonance detector, a contraption that looked like it fell off the set of Metropolis and got jiggy with a transistor radio. "Whoa, Nellie," I said, as the ERD lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. "You've got more paranormal residual energy floating around you than a seance during a full moon. I'll take the case, toots." The maid blinked, more confused than a coal miner at a debutante ball. I'm sorry. What did you just say?" I sighed. Nobody appreciates the classics anymore. "I said I'll investigate. Now, scram, sister. I've got work to do." As she hightailed it out of here, I gathered my gear and weapon of choice. The spectral spook zapper, patent pending. I slid it into my left inside coat pocket, right next to the lucky rabbit's foot I'd lifted off a less than lucky leprechaun way back in '47. I adjusted my tie, straightened my hat, and headed out to face the music. The Wackerman estate loomed ahead like the devil's own summer cottage. As I approached, a chill ran down my spine, colder than a G-man's stare. This joint was surely more haunted than my high school reputation after that unfortunate incident with the principal's toupee and a jar of molasses. The door creaked open before I could knock, revealing a butler so stiff he made Buster Keaton look like a Lindy Hopper. Look it up. "You must be the investigator," he said, eyeing my trench coat like it might bite him. "That's right, Jeeves. I'm here to solve your spectral shenanigans. Now, where's the grieving widow? I need to pick her brain like it's the last rationed can of beans." He led me to a parlor where a dame sat, draped in black like she was auditioning for a walking shadow puppet show. The widow Wackerman, I presumed. Next to her stood a gardener who fidgeted more than a pickpocket at a cop convention. Ma'am, I said, tipping my hat, I'm here to get to the bottom of your husband's untimely departure from this mortal coil. The widow's eyes narrowed. I beg your pardon. Are you quite all right, Miss Hart, Roxy Hart, and I'm as right as rain on a duck's back, sugar. Now, let's get down to brass tacks. What's the skinny on old Cornelius's last night on Earth? Before she could answer, a vase floated by. Casual as you please. As the vase left the room under its own power, the gardener yelped like he'd just seen Rita Hayworth in the flesh. I smirked, reaching into my coat. Well, well, well. Looks like this shindig's about to get interesting. Hold on to your Homburgs and pillbox hats, ladies and gents. Roxy Hart's on the case, and we're gonna paint the town red, or maybe ectoplasm green. From the parlor, I drifted down the hall into the dead guy's study. My gumshoes quieter than a Nazi spy at an Allied command post. The room, swankier than a Hollywood bigshot's ego, held more books than the Library of Congress after a shopping spree. All right, let's see what my little friends have to say about this joint, I said, muttering and whipping out the ethereal essence evaluator. It looked like a love child between a Geiger counter and a waffle iron, but it could sniff out evil spirits faster than a bloodhound on a catnip bender. The EEE started clicking like a tap-dancing telegram operator. Well, 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 I drawled. Looks like old Corny was into some hinky business. More nefarious vitality here than a ghost's laundromat. As I poked around, the widow Wackerman slunk in, looking like she'd just lost a staring contest with Medusa. Have you found anything, Miss Hart? I targeted her with a look that could strip paint. Listen, sugar, I'm gonna level with you. Your hubby was dabbling in some dark arts darker than a black market coffee bean. Care to spill the giggle water on that? She blinked like a burlesque dancer under a spotlight. I'm not sure I understand your vernacular, Miss Hart. Are you implying Cornelius was involved in the occult? Bingo, doll face. Give the lady a cigar and a one-way ticket to the Copacabana. I paused, cocking an ear. Did you hear that? A low moan shimmied through the room and steadily grew louder than a foghorn with indigestion. Suddenly, a book flew off the shelf, missing my noggin by a hair's breadth. Duck and cover, sister, I yelled, shoving the widow behind an overstuffed armchair. I whipped out my spectral spook zapper. All right, you ectoplasmic mook, let's dance. The room erupted into more chaos than a Keystone Cops reel. Books flew, curtains flapped, and somewhere a ghostly voice belted out a tune that'd make Stephen Foster, look it up, roll in his grave. I blasted left and right, my zapper illuminating the place like the searchlights at Alcatraz during a prison break. Take that, you translucent troublemaker, I hollered, nailing a particularly nasty wraith. It vanished with a pop, a whimper, and a puff of green smoke, leaving behind a stink that reeked like burned toast and regret. As the dust settled, I turned to the widow, who was peeking out from behind the chair like a groundhog with stage fright. Your house has more spirits than a speakeasy on Saturday night, Mrs. W. You mind telling me what your husband was up to? She flapped her gums faster than a gossip columnist with a spicy scoop. Turns out, Cornelius had been trying to summon some big bad from the great beyond, looking to strike a deal for power and wealth. Classic mistake. You'd think these rich types would learn, but they always want more. I needed more hot poop, so I cornered the butler in the kitchen. He was stiffer than a starched collar in January, but I could see the sweat beading on his upper lip. All right, Jeeves, I said, leaning in close. Time to sing like a canary at the Met. What do you know about the boss's late-night activities? He gulped, his Adam's apple doing the jitterbug. I'm sure I don't know what you mean, Miss Hart. I smiled, all teeth and moxie. Come off it, buddy. I've seen more convincing acts in a high school production of Hamlet. Spill it, or I'll have my friend here do some redecorating. I patted my zapper meaningfully. The butler's resolve crumbled faster than a sandcastle in a tsunami. He babbled about secret meetings, strange chants, and a final ritual that went sideways. Corny had bitten off more than he could chew, and whatever he summoned had bitten back. Armed with this info, I headed to the basement. If this was a horror movie, the audience would be screaming at me not to go down those stairs. But hey, a dame's gotta do what a dame's gotta do. The basement was darker than a Mickey Finn's intentions, and twice as disorienting. My ectoplasmic resonance detector was going haywire, its needles spinning like a drunken ballerina. Come out, wherever you are, I called, voice echoing in the gloom. Let's have a little chat, mono a monster. That's when it appeared. A shape darker than a moonless night, with more tentacles than an octopus family reunion. It roared, a sound that'd make Sinatra lose his voice in envy. I stumbled back, fumbling for my zapper. Well, ain't you uglier than a bulldog chewing a wasp? Let's see how you like a taste of Roxy Hart's special sauce. I fired, the zapper's beam flooding the underground hideaway with more light than a night raid over Berlin. The creature howled, tentacles flailing. For a moment, I thought I had it on the ropes, but one of those slimy appendages knocked the zapper from my hand, sending it skittering across the floor. The monster loomed over me, its maw gaping like the entrance to the underworld's least welcoming honky-tonk. I gulped, backing up against the wall. Well, sweet cheeks, I muttered to myself. Looks like this might be your last curtain call. But as the saying goes, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. And honey, I was about to belt out an aria that'd knock this palooka's socks off, if it wore any. As the tentacled terror approached, I knew it was time to pull out my ace in the hole. Or should I say, my ace from the hereafter. All right, you overgrown calamari, I growled. You want to dance? Let's cut a rug. I closed my eyes, concentrating harder than a code breaker at Bletchley Park. Suddenly, the air around me shimmered and sparked like a Technicolor light show at Emerald City. The monster hesitated, its tentacles freezing mid-flail. If it had eyebrows, they'd have been raised higher than a cat's back at a dog show. That's right, Buster, I said, smirking, my voice echoing with an otherworldly resonance. You're not the only spook in this rowdy scene. My body glowed hotter than the Chicago steel mills working overtime for the war effort. The creature shrieked, sounding like 1,000 nails on a chalkboard orchestra. What's the matter, ugly? Can't take the heat? I taunted, floating a few inches off the ground. Let me introduce myself properly. The name's Roxy Hart, class of 1945. And I don't mean high school, sweetheart. With a gesture that would have made Houdini green with envy, I let fly with a wallop of phantasmal pizzazz that made the basement look like Coney Island brought Times Square to a hot date on a Saturday night. The monster didn't stand a chance. It dissolved faster than a sugar cube in hot coffee, leaving behind nothing but a stench of low tide and broken dreams. As my glow faded away and I floated onto solid ground again, I heard gasps behind me. Turning, I saw the widow, the butler, and the gardener gawking at me like I was Eleanor Roosevelt doing the jitterbug in her studded leather underwear. Now that's a picture. Close your mouths, folks, I drawled. You'll catch flies. The widow stepped forward, her eyes wider than dinner plates at the Ritz. Miss Hart, What? Who are you? I straightened my fedora, which had somehow stayed on through the whole shebang. Like I said, doll, I'm Roxy Hart, paranormal investigator extraordinaire. I just happen to have a bit more personal experience with the other side than most. You mean you're the gardener stammered. A ghost? Well, butter my biscuit and call me impressed, I said, winking. Been haunting this side of the dirt since 1945, when a Jerry and I did the Razor Fandango in Kraut Country, and I missed a step. Figured I'd put my unique secret agent talents to good use, so I started solving cases no living gumshoe could crack. The butler, looking paler than usual, which for him was quite a feat, cleared his throat. But how are you solid and a woman? I shrugged, straightening my trench coat. A dame's gotta have some secrets, Jeeves. Let's just say I've picked up a few tricks since shuffling off this breeding business. Now, about your late boss. I explained how Cornelius had accidentally offed himself during his little summoning ritual. The big bad he'd called up had been more than happy to stick around and make itself at home, feeding off the fear and confusion of the household. So, that's the skinny, I concluded. Case closed, and your house is officially deghouled. My bill will be in the mail, and don't worry, I accept most forms of payment in this realm. As I turned to leave, the widow called out, "Miss Hart, will we see you again?" I paused at the door, tipping my hat with a smirk. Sugar, in my line of work, you never know where or when I might pop up. Just keep your eyes peeled and your Ouija boards handy. With that, I sauntered into the night, my form slowly fading like mist in the morning sun. Another case solved. Another day. Well, not lived, but you get the picture. In this town, the streets are dark, the dames are dangerous, and the dead don't always stay put. But as long as there are phantoms causing trouble, Roxy Hart, the ghostly dick, will be there to crack the case and save the day. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a hot date with eternity and maybe a cold glass of spectral gin. This ghost detective's work is never done. But hey, that's the breaks when you're the spook who sleuths. Psychography of Fear Lieutenant Michael Donovan, Homicide Division, Harrison Police Department, 465 Avenue A, Harrison, Michigan, 87078. Lieutenant Donovan. Should this letter reach you in time, you will find me entombed within the Bartholomew family mausoleum at the Bayview Cemetery. Buried in the floor near the north wall is a crypt covered with a clear quartz-like stone which forms the lid. Depending on when this letter reaches you, I may still be alive. Now, before you judge Clarissa, know I loved her dearly. My wife enjoyed a generous trust, and she gave back willingly to the community through the Bartholomew Foundation. Before my acquiring the calcium carcinogenic disease, we enjoyed a full, albeit private life. Unfortunately, the progression of my malady caused a severe deformity to the bone structure of both my spine and face, giving me a chalk-like necromantic disposition. Could you live with protruding spindles of white abnormalities in your cheeks, jaw, and neck? Can you imagine the pain from a severe left-leaning gait caused by spinal collapse? The sad joke of the neighborhood brood calling me the Hunchback of Notre Dame? And yet, so like the Hunchback, I possessed a kind soul. Our run-ins with the Harrison Police Department began some years ago when Clarissa became, if you will, off-kilter, caused by her living with the progression of my physical misfortunes. I refused to ask for help, a mistake on my part in hindsight, and stood by as her pathologies gained in concert with my own, but not in her body, as in mine, but her mind. She became obsessed with the belief that by experiencing fear, a euphoric state could be obtained when adrenaline and stress hormones within the amygdala of her brain spiked. She believed the exhilaration generated in her psychosis came from beyond the realm of human awareness. Who can argue? I catered to her delusions. She demanded I accompany her as she drove our Porsche up the mountain. Dome overpass at enough speed to frankly terrify us both. She screaming wide-eyed with delight, me praying for it to all end. White fists on the dash, while the lights and sirens of the department pursued us. Later, Clarissa insisted her fear level dissipated too quickly and wasn't nearly enough in intensity to achieve the arousal she desired. So next, we tried drowning. While holding her head beneath the emerald lily pads I loved so dearly, her body thrashed, the water churning with her panicked kicking, her clawing at my bleeding forearms. But again, it was not enough. Rising from my release, sputtering and choking, she soon screamed at me for holding back, claiming me weak. She needed an extended fear episode, and she needed a higher level. She needed not fear, but terror, and for a long time. What could achieve this? I'll let Clarissa describe the effect achieved from her own diary. May 1st, 2024. I know it's wrong. It makes no sense to speed recklessly, to drown yourself to near death, to lie in desperation for rescue in a grave. And yet, what is the harm? I am not hurting another soul. Henry is helping me. My poor malformed Henry, you dear. May 5th, 2024. Even now, I relive the event in my mind as a dream. It's at night, and Henry and I enter black iron gates. The sign, Bayview Cemetery, creaks in the dream as the wind rises. It must be fall, as brown leaves tumble ahead of us. We soon find the Bartholomew Mausoleum. Henry turns the key in the oak-timbered door, but he must throw his shoulder to force it open, each thrust causing another scrape against the marble pedestal of the entry, the moon glistening on the white rock. We enter, and the odor of dust raises my adrenaline, my heart rate. Fear rises up my back, a tickling sensuality. Should we have brought a flashlight? We're idiots not to bring a light. My iPhone. I fumble with the app. Henry has brought a crowbar from the Porsche, and we pry open the lid of my parents' crypt. It takes both our strength, but with a sound of heavy, clear quartz against granite, the 8-by-5-foot lid slides away. In the shaking light, the sightless eyes of my parents stare. I gasp as my breath is plucked from my chest. My bearded father is dressed to the nines in a rotting black tuxedo. My mother's white wedding dress is shredded by, I surmise, tunneling incubuses. My parents are shriveled, dry, and dead. How long? 5 years. I ask Henry to help me lie on my parents' bodies and feel the lumping softness on my back, down the back of my bare legs. I should have worn trousers. My long-ago mother's embrace holds me as I settle in. I still feel her love. Is this possible? There is a rush up my back, the tingling of nerves. Slide the lid closed, Henry, I say, peering up at him. Take my iPhone, please. Are you sure? He asks. Number, give it back. He smiles and hands down the phone, slides the lid closed, and leaves. Pitch black arrives when the mausoleum door echoes closed. No more Henry. I am now immersed in the intimacy of death. My hands push up on the slick quartz lid inches from my face. Turning on the iPhone, I strain to look and see the phone is nearly out of power. There are no service bars. Setting the phone on my chest, the light goes out, a guttural hack from my throat. Retapping the phone gets the screen light to come back on. The quartz lid of the casket on my fingers is cool, smooth, and unyielding. Pushing with all my strength, I try to raise it, slide it. It does not yield. I cannot move my head more than a few inches. I try to turn my body to get more comfortable, but can't. I lift my foot, and it hits the bottom of the lid with just inches to spare. I know cortisol and adrenaline are being released into my body because my chest is pounding, and I can't hold a thought. I am grabbing the pieces of my mind as if each thought is a stray cat, uncontrollable and desperately yowling. My mouth quivers with a bitter, foreign, metallic taste permeating the back of my throat. I know a fight-or-flight response is triggering panic. I'm hyperventilating, breathing gutturally, panicking, and almost out of my mind in terror. The breaking point comes when a slither crosses my bare ankle. This is not an insect. It has weight. It is slick, moist, and warm. Where is Henry? Please God, where is he? I take deep breaths. This works to calm me and then doesn't. My heart beats in pain, a heart attack. 30. You're too young. You're too young. Hold on a little longer. But I don't get a grip, and I can't move. The movement beneath me rustles. It slithers. My God, what the hell is it? My parents are grabbing me with their bony fingers, and I can't take it anymore. Where's Henry? Henry? I call. I scream. Henry! I'm ready, Henry! For God's sake, slide open the lid. My phone goes out, and in the black of my mind, I try to die to end this. I reach for the phone by my side, and my fingers slide into the sticky torso of my father's corpse. I strangely remember his chicken pot pie with the crust. My heart is trying to break out of my chest, and I'm dying from lack of air. Beneath me, my mother whispers. She says, go, go, go. You can go. You are at a place outside of your body, your mind, your very essence. Join us. Finally, it stops. The anxiety and fear just stop. And I am in space, and I can see thousands, no, millions of stars, and I am at rest. Is this death? Am I dead? No, I am not dead. I am at peace. I found it. I want to stay. The lid of the crypt scrapes against the granite once again. And there is Henry. He has a flashlight. You can read from my wife's diary entry, Lieutenant. Clarissa achieved an abnormal state of mind, chasing her terror as a need. After returning home, she told me the level of physical horror, the white blindness in her eyes, the searing intensity of impending death, the unknown of it ripping through her brain, wasn't enough. We talked late into the night. Let me give you the conversation as I remember it. I could go higher, she said. A journey in the mind such as this requires a companion, like a friend sharing a trip through the infernal of hell. Always better to have company. What do you mean? I asked. She explained she needed someone to join her in the crypt, to be bured in the crypt with no assurance of being saved. She needed to see and feel the companion's fear of the dark, his thrusting terror trying to open the unmovable lid after finding himself in the pungency of the grave. She had to know his fingers would discover a decaying flesh while probing beneath him. He needed to discover he was lying on a corpse that moves, that reaches, embraces. Only then would his body clamp down. Only then would his frightened gasps fill his lungs with the smell of death. Only then would he experience the agony of knowing he was dying. She needed to see and feel and take in this terror into her soul while she lay on top of the lid of the crypt, looking down through the clear quartz in the near pitch dark. His terror observed. Only then could she find nirvana, find peace. I poured my wife a glass of sherry. Where will we find such a man? I asked. Who would come willingly? No, not willingly, she said. We have broken no laws, no serious laws, I said. Even joining with your dead parents in their final place is not. In our own family mausoleum, she said. Exactly. In your family's own mausoleum. Is not a crime, she said, gesturing with her finger for me to drink up. Under not a crime, I said. What about you? She asked. Do you think you could reach the level of the horror I'm seeking while I wait for you? While I watch you from above? I slugged some sherry. Well, Do you love me? Of course, I said. Clarissa tilted her head ever so slightly. Maybe with a practice run you might feel better. After my wife slid shut the lid of the crypt the first time, I was enveloped in a dead silence. Immediately I gagged from an acidic smell of what could only be decaying flesh. With my nose inches from the quartz lid, I vomited on my chest, retching repeatedly. Lying in the black, sweating from nausea, I lost all sense of time. A minute could just as easily be an hour. The bodies beneath me shifted. I couldn't stop imagining there were rats crawling somewhere beneath me. The sides and floor of the grave had certainly rotted away, permitting the entry of any sort of burrowing creature. Clarissa would not permit a phone or flashlight. It hit me. Will she let me out? The inside of my head, my brain, started to freeze, to lock up. I couldn't remember my name or where I was. Like a tongue slurping the inside of my mouth, I searched for my memory. Where am I? And what's moving across my leg? I welcomed losing my mind, to be honest. I lay there in the dark, wanted to lose it faster. When Clarissa let me out, she was breathless and sweating. I felt embarrassed to see her so fevered, like I was a voyeur in her own fantasy, not mine to share. I looked away, ashamed, but there on the stoned lid of the crypt, a concupiscence of lust drove the two of us together, like the spike in a steel rail. Frankly, this was a sexuality so powerful, we became the closest we'd ever been. But there was no tenderness, only something primeval. When raised to the level of horror, an utmost horror, the kind where you feel your mind slip, when the awareness of who you are is sliding coldly down your throat, when you're gagging to hang on, I discovered joining another human being can be intoxicating beyond measure. The violence of the taking didn't matter. I was deformed now in body and spirit. We eventually settled on twice a week for our sessions, and this seemed sufficient to fulfill her maleficence, her craving. I admit to being trapped in the game, relishing the union, but we didn't talk anymore, living in silence between us. After some months of us living this game, you can imagine what I was thinking when I read her latest diary entry. October 31st, 2024. Henry is a true dear. How many husbands would go to the lengths he has to please his wife? But bless his heart, the deformities he is acquiring are more than one woman can stand. The other night he lay in bed next to me, thinking, I am sure, I was asleep, while he picked and pried out the bones protruding from his face. What loving wife would put up with this for long? But dare say I would. I love him. But my fetish, no, not fetish, but an overwhelming passion, an estrangement from him, is growing in me even as I write this. It seems all my power of will is lost to some foreign beast I have come to love more than my husband. This presence serves up in front of me a banquet full of the addictions of horror. This is Henry's horror also, in addition to my own, but I can't stop gorging from the table, seeing Henry squirm beneath me while I decide to let him out or not, the raw power. Knowing he is experiencing his horror is too great a desire. It calls me, and I am helpless in its summons. Spoken words seem to gush forth from my mouth, not my own, ordering Henry to the crypt. Yet it's not me. If the arms that slide the lid of the grave are not my own, but some apparition, is it my fault? Can I be blamed? I think not. Number. For me to climb the summit of where this takes me, I must experience not mine, but Henry's ultimate arrival at the state of his horror. And yes, dear diary, his death. And so, Lieutenant, you might think I'm a fool to lay myself as if a sacrifice on a banquet table laid out upon the rancid corpses of my wife's parents. You might think I crave not love, but death, and you'd be right. You see, the processes of my disease have reached a frothing state of sheer agony. The angle of my repose leans so far as to twist my spine, as if from the blooded rags of a scullery maid. My internals have become only carrion for the hounds to gobble. I don't have long. I have a favor to ask. Perhaps the academies of police may offer you a deserved promotion should you solve the murder which I sense is forthcoming. My own. This letter serves as notice for each day when I rise before heading with Clarissa onto our sordid venture, the Bartholomew family mausoleum. I place the envelope containing this letter into my mailbox after the postman has arrived. When I hobble home after being released by my wife without venturing to a more paradisaical destination, I remove the envelope. With this letter in your capable hands, you know I did not return to the estate with Clarissa. I did not remove the envelope, and it was taken by the postman to reach you. If so, I have achieved my desire to trade pain for peace. I loved Clarissa. She was my dear wife, and I think you could say I have gone above and beyond to please her. But Clarissa, my dear wife, should not forgo the penalty of murder. She should pay the price. So go now. You may find me alive. If not, serve out to Clarissa her just due. Godspeed, Henry Wickens, Call of the Marrow. Having loaded ice chests full of freshly caught crab into the back of his muddy 4x4, secured his 16-foot red and white Orkney strikeliner to the trailer attached to the vehicle, and returned to the pier to retrieve the nylon mesh crab pots left behind, Miles Burke caught sight of something bobbing in the water, an object he hadn't noticed there before. He recognized it at once as an old-style lobster pot, its slats covered in thick brown seaweed, its netting encrusted with barnacles. Mud and silt clung to its frame, and plant matter dangled from its corners as though it had been buried at the bottom of the creek for decades. He was confused at first about where it could have come from, but then remembered the trouble he'd had hauling up the last of his pots. It had gotten snagged on something at the bottom of the creek, and it struggled to yank it loose. Maybe this Pirates of the Caribbean type relic had come loose too, then drifted ashore in the wake of his boat's churning engine. Whatever the case, he shrugged it off as insignificant following his initial fascination and busied himself stowing the rest of his gear. Someone else could discover it, a local fisherman or curious child. It would make their day and give them something to talk about in this sleepy, coastal town. His eyes kept flicking to it as he worked, however, a curiosity growing that couldn't be quelled. It was probably nothing, but if the cage was as old as it looked, it could be of value. This notion nagged at him, so after depositing his cleaned and empty crab pots in the belly of the boat, he returned with a long-handled ice hook and used it to fish the cage out of the foam. It was cold and wet, slimy to the touch, but that didn't bother him. Hitching the hook to his belt, he turned the cage this way and that, confirming it was vintage, made of wooden slats, rope netting, and leather hinges. He identified the location of its circular trapdoor, but was unable to access it due to the dense accumulation of muck clogging it up. Now it was in his hands. He decided it couldn't be as ancient as he'd thought. The wood didn't smell or feel rotten. It had clearly been in the water a long time, and there was something inside. He could hear it slosh about when he shook it, but he couldn't find a chink in its algae armor to see what. Curiosity mounting, he held the cage tight against his chest and plunged the fingers of his free hand into the kelp. The fronds felt rubbery, springy, and refused to come away, instead seeming to hug the pot tighter. After a few moments, Miles became frustrated and glared at the brown stuff in annoyance. This was not how seaweed worked. The seagulls overhead seemed to agree. Circling restlessly, their shrill cries grew louder, more obnoxious, as though urging him to get the cage open and reveal its contents, or abandon it and leave it where it belonged. He winced beneath their barks, resisting the urge to tell them to shut up. Voices reached his ears, and he turned to see a pair of wizened old fogies in tweed flat caps and woolen jumpers making their way down towards the pier. He wasn't in the mood for small talk, so he hurried to the Land Rover, returning the ice hook to the boat as he passed. The cage was his now, as was whatever was within, and he didn't want to explain himself to locals. Placing the cage like a slumbering infant on the newspaper that occupied the passenger seat, he pulled his door shut and started the engine. Out of habit, he tapped the screen of his phone, which was clutched in the arms of a holder secured to the windscreen. 6 missed calls, 6 more on top of the 5 that morning. He didn't have to check to know they were from his wife, his father, his solicitor, all wanting to know where he was, what he was doing, when he was coming back to the circus his life had become. He'd come to Doonbeg to escape it, for one last indulgence of his favorite pastime before the strike liner. His pride and joy was taken away. One weekend on the water, fishing and hauling up crab, that's all he wanted. A chance to be free before it all fell apart. The noose had been tightening for weeks, finally forcing him to come clean to Kiara about the failed real estate projects he'd been hiding. The multiple mortgages, the unpaid contractors, the suing investors, forced him to admit it all in shame. The coastal resort he'd poured everything into, the one he thought would save his business, had collapsed before it could break ground. He'd stretched too far, betting that demand for luxury condos would return. It hadn't, and now, with every call he ignored, the threats were growing. Bankruptcy, foreclosure, fraud investigations, failure, exposure, humiliation. Tomorrow he'd return his attention to his woes and decide what he was going to do. Tomorrow, or the day after, or maybe the one after that. It wasn't like he had options. He was facing criminal charges and the repossession of his home and belongings. He had no control over any of it. The only thing he had any say left in was his marriage, and even that was slipping further away with each unanswered call. He had no idea what he wanted to do, fight for the love of his life or let her go. He did know one thing: Kiara did not deserve this. She was innocent. She shouldn't have to go down with his ship or be expected to support a man who cheated and lied. A loser, an idiot, an asshole. The last 3 calls had been from her, and she'd now sent 15 texts. He couldn't bring himself to read them, so he swiped the notification screen away, put the car into gear, and started driving. He waved as he passed the old men, a polite gesture, but they only glared, his clean-shaven jaw and sanitized looks marking him an outsider, not someone they needed to acknowledge. Or maybe it wasn't that. Because country folk were generally friendly. Maybe it's that they somehow knew what he'd taken, something from the creek that wasn't his. He shook his head at the guilt creeping over his shoulders, insinuating he was doing something wrong. It didn't make sense, but every glance at the cage deepened the unease in his gut. There was something about it that put him on edge, made him feel that it wasn't his to take, and it filled him with a familiar kind of excitement. "It's just junk," he said aloud, though he couldn't stop thinking about how the seaweed wouldn't come away from the slats and how something mysterious lay within, which was most likely sludge but might be treasure, something that would help with the mess he was in, something that might help Sierra. Driving away from the inlet, following the cliffs towards Domore and the quiet B&B he booked into, he busied himself with fanciful musings of what kind of treasure the cage might hold. The undulating sea dominating the horizon to his right, gently rising slopes carpeted by fields of purple orchids on his left. It was a magnificent day, all azure skies, cotton wool clouds, and the scent of salty sea spray in the air. He couldn't have asked for more. It was exactly the calm he needed before the storm clouds over his life unleashed their fury. The drive to Ayrton House took 20 minutes, and soon he was maneuvering his vehicle, boat and all, onto the gravel-covered parking lot at the side of the stone-clad building. He was the only guest that weekend, so space for his car and trailer wasn't a problem. He took his phone, the harbinger of inescapable doom, and climbed out, swinging around to the passenger side to reclaim the cage. He took time to wrap it in paper so it wouldn't make a mess when he went in, then crunched across the gravel to the door. He was eager to attack it with his knife, cut away the seaweed, and get inside, so he was hoping not to bump into the proprietor, a lovely old dear named Mary Shaw, who could talk like there would never be a tomorrow. He wasn't lucky. "Ah, there you are," Mary said, shuffling from the dining room as he entered the hall, a bright smile on rosy cheeks, dead carnations clutched in pudgy hands. "Nice day for it. Catch anything interesting?" "Not really. I was only after crab today. You can have some if you like. I'm only going to drop it at the market." He kept moving, casting her the briefest of smiles as he made his way to the stairs and started up. "That would be lovely. My Trevor used to catch crab every weekend, before he fecked off to Australia with that floozy. I was telling you about her, wasn't I? Her and her 10 ex-boyfriends, and my Trevor to be number 11 because he couldn't resist her charms. What's that you have there?" He was on the 5th step when she spotted it, and he checked to make sure he hadn't dripped dirt on her carpet. "Just an old lobster pot. Found it at the pier. It's ancient, but might be worth something if I clean it up. People will buy anything these days." "Dunmore Pier?" Mary suddenly looked troubled, and the smile had fallen from her lips. "What do you mean, found it?" "Just what I said," Miles replied, caught off guard by her change in demeanor and questions. "I think it was buried in the creek. I must have dislodged it." At the foot of the stairs, Mary creased her brow. "That might not be good, Mr. Burke. There's terrible legends associated with that place. A lot of people have been drawn to their deaths there over the years. It's a dangerous place. Haunted, some say. Or worse." "Worse? I don't like to talk about it. Gives me the heebie-jeebies, and it sounds ridiculous. Don't laugh now, but some say the bay is cursed. Some say it's home to the Kumara, the hound of the sea, the Marrow." "The Marrow?" Miles shook his head to indicate he'd never heard of such a thing, then resumed his climb to the landing. "Merman," Mrs. Shaw elaborated, eyes wide under a mop of gray curls as she started after him. "You know, like a mermaid, but a man. I know it sounds ridiculous, but some believe it. There are stories of it making off with the souls of the tormented who drowned or jumped from the cliff. They say it keeps their spirits locked in cages, which it hoards like jewels at the bottom of the bay." Her wide eyes were locked on the paper-wrapped cage, one hand on the banister as she climbed, the other crushing the stems of dead flowers. "That's a new one," Miles chuckled, reaching the top of the stairs. "Never knew we were supposed to have mermaids in Ireland, along with banshees and leprechauns. We've some amount of fairy tales, don't we? Don't get me wrong, Mr. Burke. I'm not a believer in such things." She'd stopped halfway up to catch her breath, but continued to stare as he crossed to his bedroom door. "But at the same time, you can't be sure, can you?" "You can't," Miles said, fishing in a pocket for his key. "That could be one of them. A soul cage, one of the Kumaras." "Hardly," he scoffed, guiding the key into the keyhole. He could hear her coming up the stairs again behind him, feel her eyes boring into his skull. "But it's a great story, and it might help sell the thing, if it doesn't fall apart when I take off the kelp." The key turned, the lock disengaged. He opened the door. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Mr. Burke. If the legends are true, it's troubled souls the Kumara craves, wayward souls trying to escape." "Sorry, Mrs. Shaw. I'm exhausted, so I'm going to grab a shower and take a nap. I might stay another night. I'll let you know this evening." "Oh, and I'll bring you that crab. Hopefully it's as good as what Trevor used to catch." "I'd put that back," Mary went on as he shut the door. "Back where you found it, if you know what's good for you." "Fuck's sake," he muttered under his breath as the door clicked shut, then rested against it and braced for more. When he heard her slippered feet slogging back down the stairs, he relaxed, placing the mucky cage on his bed and spreading out the newspaper beneath it. Jesus, mermen and soul cages. I've heard it all now. Better not be a box of bloody souls. I need something good. His heart was pounding, and he had that feeling again, that nervous exhilaration he got when doing something he shouldn't. He still couldn't explain why he felt it. He wasn't gambling with his and Ciara's future, wasn't siphoning non-existent funds from account to account or cooking books. He was just messing with some shit he'd found in the surf. It was no big deal, at all. But he still felt the need to take the edge off, so he went to his suitcase for the small paper package containing a Ziploc bag of white powder, a well-used €50 note, and half an old credit card, then spent the next few minutes at the dresser sorting it out. Once satisfied, and having wiped some residue from his nose, he took the Swiss Army knife Ciara had given him for Christmas from a cargo pants pocket and prized out its largest blade. "For the man who has everything," he recalled her saying, and tears welled unbidden in his eyes. He'd had everything and never deserved it, never deserved her. He couldn't redeem himself now, even if the cage contained diamonds. But if he could make things right for her, that would give these last squandered years of his life some kind of meaning. And so, with a sharp inhalation, he knelt at the foot of the bed and started to saw. Almost immediately, he noticed it wasn't working. No matter how much he slashed, the seaweed refused to come away. He could see the blade slicing through fronds, watched them sever with his own eyes, but the slimy substance clung to the cage and refused to tear free. "What the hell?" He went at it harder, tightening his grip on the knife, jabbing its blade into the gelatinous sludge, stabbing, carving. "What is this?" And then the blade got jammed, and the knife's handle jerked out of his hand. "Damn it," he said, wiping a sweaty palm on his muddy pants before reaching to take back the knife, only to see it get sucked into the seaweed and disappear. What? It was sudden and noiseless, a subtle, casual motion that seemed almost normal. Miles moved his face closer, squinted to peer through the mulch, couldn't see in. "You're having a laugh," He sighed and poked his fingers into the mush where the knife disappeared. He couldn't feel it. He wriggled his fingers in further. The seaweed seemed to loosen around his hand. He twisted his wrist, and his fingers and thumb slipped inside. The seaweed seemed to shrivel up and tighten. His fingers got a hold of something solid. Then something solid got a hold of him, clamping around his hand and squeezing tight. "Miles Burke," a voice seemed to issue from within. "Ah!" Miles cried, hugging the cage to his chest and hopping to his feet. The thing on the inside pulled, and his hand slipped in up to the wrist. Miles Burke. Jesus. A strange sensation, like aggressive pins and needles, swept through him, starting in his hand and spreading fast, up into his arm, shoulder, face. "Get off." He maneuvered the cage with the arm it was stuck on, held it against his side with the other. He pulled, he tugged, he staggered around the room as he struggled, yelled and pitched forward when he felt something bite. He crashed into a wall, lifted his head, let his terrified gaze peer into a mirror. The face staring back wasn't his. Fear gripped his chest and he screamed, falling away from the monstrous visage, all doughy gray flesh, mossy green hair, pig-like eyes and moldy teeth. "Give it to me," Miles could have sworn he heard it say, before he tripped and fell back, cracking his head on the corner of the dresser and coming to rest on the floor. He dreamt then, a dream like no other, a strange collection of images and sounds that made no sense. Of him lying motionless on the ground, blood painting a pool around his head. Of Mary Shaw entering the room. Of policemen covering him with a sheet and collecting powdery evidence. Of Mary driving, walking, standing at the edge of the bay, whispering into the cage, saying, "I warned you." Your tortured soul called out, and the marrow called back. Of the cage being cast into the sea. Of the dark, murky depths of a jet-black ocean. Of the pig-eyed Kumara slithering from the depths to claim its prize, its cage now home to a fresh soul gleaming with torment, a treasure to be savored for eternity. Don't open the door. Did you really think you'd get away with this? I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you do. I saw you. I saw everything. What the hell are you talking about? I didn't do anything. Please, don't play dumb. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The bag, the key, and that... Wait. You followed me? Followed you? No, I stumbled upon you. I didn't even know you were there until I saw you go inside. Inside where? Don't do this, please. Don't pretend you've forgotten. I honestly don't know what you're talking about. The basement, Marco, that damn basement. Why? What are you hiding down there? You're insane. You're spying on me and then making up stories. What was in the bag? What? The bag, Marco. What was in it? That's none of your business. That's not an answer. What was in the bag? Nothing that concerns you. You've already said that, but it's not true, is it? Because if it was nothing, why would you hide the bag in the basement? Stop this. I won't stop. Not until you tell me the truth. I told you? It's none of your business. If you don't want it to be my business, why won't you just tell me? Anything, Marco. Give me a reason to believe you. You don't have to believe me. Marco, please. What did you do? Nothing. Don't make me go down there. Don't. Don't what? don't go down there. Why? What will you do if I go? Nothing. Just don't. Tell me what you're hiding. I'm not hiding anything. Don't lie to me. Your voice, I can hear it trembling. You know what? I'm going down there. No, don't. Stop. Yelena, wait. Why should I stop, Marco? What will happen if I keep going? Please don't. Just stay here. I won't. I'm tired of your secrecy. I'm opening the door. Yelena, I'm telling you, don't touch that door. Why not? Because you won't be able to unsee what you see. What is that supposed to mean? What did you do, Marco? Nothing. It's not my fault. I didn't want this to happen. What didn't you want to happen? Whatever it is, it's too late to turn back now. I'm opening the door. Yelena, I'm begging you. Leave it closed. Begging me? You? After all the things you're hiding from me? This is your last chance, Marco. Tell me the truth, or I'm opening it. I can't tell you, but you wouldn't understand. What wouldn't I understand? That you did something? That you're hiding something terrible? You think I won't understand because I'm stupid? No, that's not it. It's just, please, don't open the door. That's all I'm asking. I'm opening it. Yelena, don't. What is this? Marco, what is this? I told you not to open it. Is this blood? On the floor? Marco, this can't be real. Yelena, let's just get out of here. You don't have to look. Wait, this is the bag. Marco, what's inside? What's in this bag? Don't open it. Haven't you already learned that nothing will stop me? I'm opening it. Yelena, please, don't. Oh my God, Marco, this is... I know what it is. Whose arm is this, Marco? What the hell is going on here? It's not what you think. Then what is it? Please explain, because I see a severed arm in a bag, and I see blood. Explain this exclamation mark. I didn't kill her. Killed? Marco, you're insane. What murder? Severed arms don't fall from the sky. Who is this? I don't know her name. You don't know her name? Marco, are you out of your mind? It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen. What didn't you mean to happen? What are you talking about? For her to die? Who to die? What happened, Marco? Tell me now, or I'm calling the police. No, you can't call the police. Why? Why not? This is murder, Marco. Or at least it looks like it. Tell me the truth. Yelena, I tried to save her. Save her? From what? From them. What others? Don't twist your words. Who are they? You won't believe me. Try me. Because right now, I think you're a dangerous lunatic who kills people. I didn't kill anyone. Whose arm is this, Marco? I told you I don't know her name. But I know it's not just hers. What does that mean? Not just hers. There are more. More of what? More people? More arms? What are you talking about? Them. They're here. They? Marco, stop with the riddles. Explain exclamation mark. I won't say anything. Not here. Not in front of them. In front of who? We're alone. We're not alone, Yelena. We're never alone. Marco, who are they? Stop with the riddles and tell me what's going on. I can't tell you. If you find out, they'll find out. Who will find out? What are you talking about? Do you even realize how insane you sound? Insane? Jelena, if you knew what I know, you'd never sleep again. Stop it. I don't believe in your fantasies. This is the real world, Marco. This is blood. This is an arm. This is... Wait, what's this on the floor? This looks like a symbol. Marco, what is this? Don't look at it. Don't look at it. I've already seen it, Marco. It looks like a pentagram or something. Are you in a cult? Is this some kind of sickness? Are you a murderer? I'm not a murderer. Stop accusing me of things you don't understand. Then explain. Stop being silent and explain. Because I can't take this anymore. Fine. You want the truth? I'll tell you. But you won't like it. Try me. Anything is better than this uncertainty. They're not human. What? They're not human. What you see, what you feel, those aren't human beings. They're something else. Marco, do you even hear how crazy that sounds? No wonder you're paranoid. You're talking about what? Demons? Monsters? Stop it. I'm not crazy. Yelena, this isn't the first time this has happened. They've been here for years, decades, maybe even centuries, and no one knows until it's too late. What the hell are you talking about? Their rules are clear. You don't speak of them. You don't touch their victims. And if you break the rules, you're next. Marco, you're talking about this as if it's real, but this is just, I don't know, some kind of paranoid story. There is no they. These are your hallucinations. Does this look like a hallucination, Yelena? Look at the blood on the floor. Look at the arm. Do you really think I'd make all of this up? But that doesn't prove they're demons or whatever you're claiming. This could be, I don't know, the mafia, a cult, someone real. I wish it was. But it's not. It's not something you can understand until you see them. I see blood, Marco. I see the symbol on the floor. But none of that proves your story. This is madness. Pure madness. Yelena, just listen to me. If you want to get out of here alive, you need to stop digging deeper. They already know you're here. Marco, this is too much. I'm calling the police. I can't do this alone. You can't call the police. Yelena, they can't help. Why? Why not? Because the police have already tried, and there isn't a single officer who's walked out of this basement alive. Stop it. Listen to yourself, Marco. This is... Shh. Jelena, quiet. What? Do you hear that? I don't hear anything. Marco, stop it. Quiet, Yelena. They're coming. Who's coming? Stop it. Stop playing games. Yelena, please, don't breathe too loudly. Just stay still. What? What is that sound? Marco, what is it? I told you not to open the door. Now you've woken them. Who are they, Marco? What is that? What are those lights? Those eyes? I told you. Marco, what's happening? It's too late, Yelena. It's too late. No, Marco, don't do this. Don't leave me here. I'm sorry. You have to face this alone. No, don't. Marco, don't leave. Marco. Marco. Yelena, listen to me. Listen carefully. Stay still. Don't move. If you stay still and don't make a sound, maybe they won't see you. What? What won't see me? Marco, what are these? These creatures? These eyes? These hands? What the hell am I looking at? Don't look at them. Don't look into their eyes. But they're everywhere. What do I do? How do I not look? Yelena, just close your eyes. Breathe deeply. They can sense fear. The more you're afraid, the closer they'll come. How can I not be afraid? Marco, what are these things? I told you, they're not human. They're things. Even I don't know exactly what they are. I just know they're not from this world. You're insane. You're completely insane. This isn't real. This is a dream. It has to be a dream. Jelena, this isn't a dream. If it were, you wouldn't feel the cold. You wouldn't feel their breath on your neck. What? What did you just say? On my neck. Don't turn around. Ah! Marco, they're here. I see them. Don't look into their eyes, Jelena. I told you, close your eyes. I can't. There are too many of them. They're staring at me. Jelena, calm down. Breathe. You have to breathe. Marco, they're getting closer. Marco, please, help me. I can't. They've already seen you. What? What does that mean? Marco, tell me what that means. It means it's over. There's nothing I can do. It's too late. No, don't say that. There has to be a way. There's a way out, right? The only way was to never wake them. Please, I can't do this. Marco, they're touching me. Marco, don't scream. Don't give them a reason. I can't. I can't take it anymore. Ah! Jelena, no exclamation mark. Marco, they're pulling me. Marco, help me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't leave me. Don't. Jelena, forgive me. No, Marco. Ah! I told you not to open the door. Insatiable, Part 2. Her voice, trembling, cut through the silence. Daddy? The words scraped against something deep inside me, something buried under the roar of the hunger. My body moved before I could think, lurching forward, one decayed hand reaching. Her face twisted in horror as she stumbled back, pressing herself against the wall. No, Daddy, stop. Stop. Please, God, stop. But I couldn't. The hunger tore through me, relentless, demanding. Her heartbeat echoed in my ears, a steady drum calling me forward. I reached for her, my jagged breath wheezing like rusted hinges. Her tears glistened in the dim light, her small hands trembling as she held them up, useless shields against what I was about to do. I was almost on her when the memory hit, sharp and blinding. Her tiny hand in mine, sticky with melted ice cream, her laughter bubbling up as she looked at me, wide-eyed with trust. I love you, Daddy. The memory burned, more painful than the hunger. I stopped mid-lunge, my clawed hand hanging inches from her face. Get away from her! Emily's voice rang out, fierce and trembling. She barreled into me with all her strength, the impact jarring but barely enough to move me. A flash of silver caught the weak light. She had a knife. Emily. My voice was a wet croak, unrecognizable. She slashed at me, the blade tearing into the rotted flesh of my shoulder. I didn't feel it. She planted herself between Grace and me, her chest heaving, her eyes locked on mine. "You won't touch her," she spat, the fear in her voice barely hidden under the force of her words. Emily shouted without turning, her voice ragged. "Go, Grace! Don't look back!" Grace hesitated, her tiny figure trembling, then bolted down the stairs. "Run, Grace. Run far away from me, baby." The sound of Grace's retreating footsteps faded, leaving only Emily and me in the suffocating silence. She squared her shoulders, her trembling hand gripping the knife like it could keep the darkness at bay. The hallway narrowed as Emily stepped forward, knife trembling in her hand. The dim light from the shattered bulb above flickered across her face, her jaw tight, her eyes locked on mine. "Stay back," she said, her voice steady, even as the blade shook. "Stop! Stop! Please, God, stop me. This is my love. This is my life." It wouldn't let me stop. The hunger surged like a wave, driving me forward. My rotting legs dragged against the floor, my fingers twitching as they reached for her. I screamed at my body to stop, but it kept going. "Stop. Please, for God's sake, stop." But the hunger roared. It was a force, pulling my body like strings on a marionette. Emily lunged forward, slashing the knife, the blade slicing into my forearm. A wet sound, something that used to be flesh tearing open, oozing dark, thick rot. I didn't feel it. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second. She'd been expecting pain, a reaction, but there was nothing. "David, listen to me." Emily's voice broke as she stabbed again, tears streaking her face. "You're in there. I know you are. You love us. You love Grace." But her words barely reached through the roaring hunger, and my hands moved without me, reaching for her. Her expression faltered, the resolve cracking just slightly, but she gripped the knife tighter. She stepped back, placing herself fully between me and stairs. I lunged. The knife slashed again, this time catching my ribs. I felt the wet scrape of the blade against bone, the sound sharper than the pain I couldn't feel. She screamed for Grace again, her voice raw and desperate. "Run, baby! Run!" Grace's sobs echoed from the bottom of the staircase, her small figure darting out of sight. I lunged, my decayed fingers closing around Emily, seizing her in a moment when her eyes flicked toward Grace. A heartbeat of distraction was all the hunger needed to strike. Emily screamed, her voice cracking into something raw and animalistic. Her fists pounded against my chest, each blow weaker than the last. Her nails raked my skin, peeling away rotted flesh, exposing yellowed bone. She twisted, fought, but I held her like a vice. Her body was warm, so warm, it burned against the rot of my hands. Her eyes locked on mine, wide and terrified. For half a heartbeat, I thought I could stop. Then the hunger surged again, tearing through me. My body moved before I could think. My teeth sank into her neck, tearing through skin and muscle with a sickening wet snap. Hot blood surged into my mouth, metallic and thick, spilling down my throat in waves. The taste was fire and ecstasy, searing through what little humanity was left in me, and I hated how good it felt. Emily's scream turned into a gurgle, her hands clawing at my face, pushing weakly as I tore deeper. "Stop. Stop. stop. But I couldn't. The hunger was everything. Her body jerked once, then stilled. Her blood ran warm and steady over my hands, pooling at my feet. Her lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear, couldn't understand. Her eyes found mine, wide and glassy, but there was something else there, a flicker of recognition, a memory, love, maybe, or disgust. Then it was gone. The light in her eyes snuffed out, leaving only the dull, empty stare of the dead. I let her fall, her body crumpling to the floor like something broken, discarded. My hands shook, slick with her blood, her warmth already fading. I wanted to scream, to claw at myself, to rip this hunger out of me with my bare hands. But there was nothing left. Nothing but the hunger and her lifeless body at my feet. Emily, I tried to whisper, the word choking in my throat. Black ooze dripped from my mouth, pooling with her blood on the cold, unforgiving floor, the hunger inside me roaring in triumph. No! What have I done? Then I heard it, a small, sharp gasp. Grace. I turned, my body sluggish. She stood at the base of the stairs, her small hand clutching the railing. Her eyes were wide, red from crying, her face pale. Daddy? She whispered. Her voice cracked something inside me that should have died with Emily. I tried to speak, to tell her I was sorry. But when I opened my mouth, all that came out was a moan, wet and broken. Black ooze dripped from my chin, pooling at my feet. Grace screamed, her voice breaking into choking sobs. Mommy! No, Mommy, please! She stumbled back, gripping the railing as if it could hold her world together. My chest, if I still had one, felt like it was caving in, but the hunger didn't care. It surged again, pulling me toward her. Graksh, I croaked, the word barely intelligible, but she heard it. And she turned and ran, her small figure disappearing into the dark. I stumbled forward, my body following her scent, even as my mind begged for the darkness to take me. The hunger stirred again, twisting inside me, demanding I follow. I looked down at Emily. Her blood was still warm on my hands, her lifeless body crumpled and broken at my feet. I am losing everything. The hunger didn't care. It roared, pulling me to my feet, dragging me after Grace. Number, please. Let her go. But the hunger will never let go. The street stretched out before me, empty and cold. My feet drag against the pavement, leaving wet, dark smears behind. The hunger had quieted, but it wasn't gone. It never was. It coiled beneath my skin, waiting for the next surge. I stumbled past darkened houses, their windows like hollow eyes. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, sharp and frantic. I froze, listening, but the sound faded into the hum of distant traffic. What am I doing? Emily's face swam before me, frozen in that final, lifeless stare. Her blood still clung to my hands, thick and sticky. My body ached, not from the fight, but from something deeper, a guilt so heavy it made every step feel like wading through tar. Then a flash. Sterile white walls, a row of test tubes, their labels blurred and meaningless, a shattered vial, the liquid spreading across my face and hands like blood. I stumbled, my shoulder hitting a street lamp. The cold metal bit into my decayed skin, snapping me back to the present. The hunger stirred, hissing in my ears, but the memory clawed its way back, stronger now. We shouldn't push this far. My own voice, frantic, echoed in my head. I could almost feel the heat of a lab, the hum of machinery, But the memory didn't stay. It bled, twisting into something else. Emily laughing, a steaming cup of coffee in her hand, her hair falling loose around her face. Grace on the living room floor, cradling her teddy bear, her smile lighting up the room. Stop, don't think about them. The hunger seized those memories, warping them. Emily's laughter turned into her scream. Grace's smile faded, replaced by wide, terrified eyes. I doubled over, gripping my knees. The hunger whispered, "Keep moving. She's still out there." I obeyed. The woods were silent except for the sound of my feet dragging through the underbrush. The world was muffled here, the thick canopy of trees blotting out the moonlight, the air heavy with damp earth and rot. My breath, or what passed for it, came in short, ragged bursts. The hunger had returned, gnawing at my insides like a rabid animal. Then I saw her. At first, it was just a shadow, something flickering between the trees. But as I stepped closer, the shape took form. Emily. Number. It can't be. She stood with her back to me, her head tilted at an odd angle. Her clothes hung in tatters where I had shredded them, dark stains splattered across her blouse. Her arms hung stiffly at her sides, and her posture was too rigid, too dead. Emily? But voice cracked, low and growling. She turned. Her eyes were clouded, a milky gray that seemed to pierce straight through me. Her skin, once smooth and warm, sagged in loose patches, exposing butchered flesh. Her mouth hung open slightly, lips cracked and blackened. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. My mind had been slipping since the hunger took hold, twisting memories into cruel replicas of reality. But this wasn't a memory. She was here, standing in front of me. She wasn't human anymore. My hands trembled as I stepped closer. Her head tilted further, her movements jerky, like a puppet with tangled strings. Her gaze locked on mine, and something flickered in her expression, a shadow of recognition. The hunger in me stirred, hissing and coiling like a living thing. I could feel it inside her too, like a heat radiating from her decayed form. It linked us, bound us in a way that no words could. She took a step forward, her movements uneven, but deliberate. I didn't move. I couldn't. Her mouth opened, and a low, gurgling sound emerged. Half a growl, half a moan. She took another step, then stopped. We stood there, facing each other. Then the sound of footsteps broke the silence. A man appeared on the path, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. He was walking a dog, a large, lumbering thing that barked at the sight of us. The man froze, his eyes darting between me and Emily. The hunger surged, roaring in my ears. My body moved before I could think, lurching toward him. Emily moved too, a grotesque mirror of my movements. The man screamed as we collided with him, our hands tearing at his clothes, his flesh. His flashlight clattered to the ground, the beam illuminating the scene in harsh, stuttering flashes. I felt my teeth sink into his shoulder, the hot rush of blood filling my mouth. Beside me, Emily clawed at his chest, her fingers digging deep into his skin. The dog barked frantically, pulling at its leash, but the man's screams drowned out everything else. His warmth seeped into me, dulling the hunger for a brief, fleeting moment. I turned to Emily. Her face was smeared with blood, her eyes still clouded but alive with something primal. We fed together, tearing him apart piece by piece. His screams faded, replaced by the wet, sickening sounds of flesh being ripped from bone. When it was over, we stood there, our bodies slick with blood. the man's lifeless form crumpled between us. The dog had fled, its leash trailing behind it. Emily looked at me, her head tilting again. The recognition was still there, faint but undeniable. This wasn't love. It was something else, something twisted and monstrous. But in that moment, it felt like we were connected, bound by the hunger and the carnage we'd wrought together. I wanted to scream, to claw my way out of this nightmare. But all I could do was stare at her and wonder how much further I could fall. The first one appeared the next night. Emily and I had just finished. A man in a suit stumbling from a bar, his tie loose around his neck. His screams were already fading, his body crumpled on the ground when the hunger in me finally dulled. I was wiping the blood from my face when I felt it. A shift in the air, subtle but undeniable. I turned, and there he was. He shouldn't have been moving. His chest was ripped open, his throat little more than a mangled red mess. But his head twitched, then turned toward us. His eyes were empty, the sockets ringed with blood, but something stared out of them. Emily tilted her head, mirroring his movement. A low sound came from her throat. The man stood, jerking upright as if pulled by invisible strings. My legs felt weak, shaking beneath the weight of what I was seeing. But then another appeared, and another. The woman from the gas station, the jogger by the park, faces I hadn't let myself remember, all shuffling forward, their limbs twisted. The sound they made, a low, gravely moan, layered and deep, wasn't noise. It was communication. And I realized the truth. They weren't individuals. They were connected, not to each other, but to the hunger, to me, to us. I looked at Emily, her blood-streaked face impassive, and I knew we were leading them, guiding them. Grace. The hunger stirred, roaring with purpose. I turned toward the dark horizon, where she was still running, still hiding. The horde moved with me, their jerking steps falling into rhythm. We stand at the edge of the hill, the town sprawled out below us like a patchwork of light and shadow. Street lamps flicker, faint and distant, their glow seeping through the trees. The hunger twists inside me, relentless, pulling me forward. Beside me, Emily twitches, her bloodied hand jerking at her side, her head tilting toward the lights. She growls low, her broken body still and yet coiled, ready. For a fleeting moment, something stirs. A memory, faint but sharp. Grace's laughter as she spun in the backyard, her hands outstretched to the sky. Emily leaning against the doorframe, smiling, her hair catching the sunlight. My family. But the hunger shreds it, devours it. I glance at Emily, her clouded eyes fixed on the town, her mouth twisted into something between a snarl and a grin. The bond between us is no longer love, it's need, endless, insatiable. The horde gathers behind us, their collective presence amplifying the pull. I feel their hunger like it's my own. Emily tilts her head toward them, growling in unison. There's no division between us now, just a single relentless instinct binding us together. The lights of the town seem closer, brighter. The scent of life hangs in the air, thick and intoxicating. The hunger whispers, louder now, surging with the weight of the others. The mantra swells in my mind, stronger than before. Grace, grace, grace. Then, music. It drifts up the hill, cutting through the cool night air. The horde behind me stills, their jerking movements halting as the sound reaches them too. I shuffle closer to the edge of the hill. The source of the sound becomes clear, a parade winding through the heart of the town. a line of floats glinting in the glow of street lamps. The faint murmur of a crowd rises and falls, a tide of laughter and cheers. A girl, perched high on a float, her silhouette framed by an arch of shimmering lights. She wears a crown, its rhinestones catching the light in sharp, brilliant flashes. Homecoming. The word slides into my thoughts like an echo from another life, a memory scraped raw by the hunger. The horde stirs, their murmurs rising into a single, unified sound, a deep groan that ripples through the trees like a storm wind. The parade below doesn't hear it, their cheers drowning out the first whispers of doom. Emily lunges forward, and the horde follows, their shuffling steps gaining momentum. The trees shake with their movements, the ground trembling as the mass of us begins to descend. The hunger in me surges, unrelenting, unstoppable. The distance between us and the town closes, the fragile tether of memory slipping from my grasp. Grace. The name whispers through my mind one last time before the hunger consumes it. The horde moves as one, and we descend the hill, how to go back. 2 years ago, I stared into the eyes of a little dead girl. She was sprawled on some highway, deep in what used to be the Midwest, her dead, fermenting eyes staring past me, and up, up, up into the sun-bleached sky. They didn't leave many bodies behind when they left, didn't want to find skeletons when they came back, I assume. Her skin was dark and leathery. There was a hole growing in her cheek. Blue tendrils came twirling out of the rotted, bony mass with those little orange tips. I wished they were green. I missed the trees, the grass. The closest thing to nature are the dead bodies with the synthetic viruses, eating themselves towards the clouds. Puny fingernail scratches on deep blue skin. She might have been dead for 3 months, 6 at a stretch. The first thing I felt when I saw her was excitement. She was the closest thing I'd seen to another person in 6 years. My father's body had been more pristine, less infected by the now, a perfect conservation of the then. There was only the tight, red little hole in his temple, the pool of dark, sticky blood pooling around bits of his brain, staring at me like a sick, foaming, red-furred dog. His eyes were stained red by blood, and they sat uncomfortably in their sockets, dislodged by the force of a bullet tearing it all up behind him. He was smiling, a slash of red teeth, red eyes popping. I half expected them to flick towards me, half expected the revolver, still lying loosely in his palm, to fire a matching shot through my own temple. I was relieved when he killed himself, as I was when I saw the dark hole in that little girl's cheek. I took the gun, I took his shoes, I turned around, and I left. As I reached the crest of the yellow hill, I looked back at him, lying like roadkill on the highway, in the dead yellow grass, our truck lying upside down, smoking, a few feet away. I wiped blood from my forehead, and I pressed on, the sun belching like a toad-white bubble of heat that burst around me periodically. There was a similar gunshot in the little girl's calf that poked out from her purple nightgown. It was the nightgown that made me vomit. I heaved onto the tarmac. I heaved and I heaved. She was so young, the same age as me probably, when I left my father's corpse to rot in the fat white sun that turned the sky gray from its heat. It happened in the night, I thought, sitting on the tarmac, staring at the little dead girl. There were faint, sun-baked faint tire marks on the road. She had gone, I thought, so young. She died, seething with red-hot pain, alone in the inky night, not an inkling of who she once might have been. The sun was rising, the sky was losing her blue. The pile of vomit to my side would begin to cook soon, like a stinky goose egg in a frying pan. I stood up. I looked at her once more, a china doll, cracked up and fading in the sun. I turned my head back to the road, the tarmac melting into a black puddle on the horizon. It had been the last wink of winter that day. Or what would have been winter? My diary says so. March 3rd. It's almost definitely wrong. The last time I was really sure of the day, the month, the year, I was 9. The day the school caught fire and burned down. The village burned for a week. The school was first, a black plume into the purpley gray midday sky. The grass was already threadbare, yellow. The buildings were lazy, wooden shacks, standing crooked, haphazard, peeling rows like a pile of matches. It's difficult to build, gather materials, do anything at all when you swelter all day under a rock or in a shack waiting for the midnight hours. The village burned, and then Grandma picked up bleach on the exodus, and soon everybody was gone, my father on his way. That day, after seeing the dead girl, I had collected enough gas and food to wait out the summer in the caves. They were damp, dripping places if you went down far enough. It stank of rotted bodies, those who had starved or gone, but it was cool. It was dark. It was safer than third-degree burns and snarling tumors all summer long. I remember I'd left it so late that I knew to stop driving and lie in the grass under the car. I usually passed out from the heat after an hour or so. When the sun was lower in the sky, orange and red, the sky green and pink, I poured water over myself, guzzled it through my cracked, bleeding lips. And then I drove, and I drove. I'd left it so late, so dangerously late, that towards the end of the journey they started appearing in the sky. Small black dots at first, but they got bigger. They're ships, full of, I don't know, probably scientists in gray coats, watching, waiting for everything to die so they could start again. They're nothing but black pebbles in the sunset to me, and they disappear in the safety of the night. Black pebbles, no windows, no movement, no noise. They've no exhaust fumes, no visible sign of life. They just float calmly in the sky, black beads, watching as Earth eats itself like a coyote starving in the desert, picking at its own ribcage for morsels of its fleshy stomach. A stomach long gone. That little dead girl was a premonition, I suppose. It had been a silent, dissociative half-decade of white, silent heat. Each year dripped onto my lips like the last of the water in the hip flask I dangle now, as I speak, above my head. I should have been gone for the caves days ago. I stand on the roof of a gas station. It's midday. The sky is clear and gray. The yellow-brown plains sprawl outwards, forever on all sides. The highway cuts a black line down the middle. There's the occasional Lone Ranger, the telephone post in the distance, the hollow carcass of a tree. It's silent. So silent. Silence as deafening as a Red Sea, crashing down on my shoulders and burrowing into my dry, blistered throat. There's blood leaking from the blisters in my cheeks. It starts to boil slowly, etching teary burns down my chin, down my neck. I don't feel it. I don't feel anything. I'm a pair of eyes. I forgot the cave long ago. I've been waiting for this day. The last day of winter, the last wink. I hold my arms outstretched. From somewhere far away, much bluer and greener, much louder. If I squint, I can feel them burn like an old photograph on the campfire. The sensation starts to feel like rain, cold and relieving. I bleached myself intentionally. I went to one of the rotted bodies deep in the caves. A man. In the torchlight, his eyes were milky and half-closed, his mouth slack. There was a bottle of something that had rolled away from his right hand. There were foamy remnants on his lips. He reminded me of my little brother, Jeffrey. Maybe if he had grown up in the green and blue world, then he would have looked like that. I kissed his forehead. I began to forget not long after. It was sweet. It was like falling slowly asleep from this nightmare. This fucking nightmare, I hear myself scream from far away in the blue and green. I start to turn away now as my legs begin to give out on the roof of the gas station. I can feel nothing holding out his hand. The blistered now is a universe away. Just before I turn and walk down the hill, the rain pouring onto my neck, blurring my vision into a sweet, comfortable gray, expansive, eternal gray. I see that little dead girl lying on the highway, sprawled out on the scorched earth. I smile as I slip away. I smile at her red, unblinking eyes. The Bruja and the Brujo Clay was driving west on I-270 towards St. Louis. The radio was off. He was alone with his thoughts. His father had died 2 days ago, and he was on his way from Chicago to the services, trying to reconcile his feelings on the road. He loved his father, but the old man was very difficult at times. He didn't really view Clay as his son. He viewed him as his private property, to do with as he wished. It was always football practice, baseball games, wrestling meets, karate lessons, and more. Sometimes Clay just wanted to hang out with his friends and play some video games, but there was rarely much time for that. His father spent 22 years in the U.S. Marine Corps. The red light behind the gas gauge lit up. He meant to stop and fuel up an hour ago, but he was lost in thought. Now he was in the middle of nowhere, and who knew where the closest gas station might be? Hopefully something would come up soon. He stopped thinking about his father as this practical concern overrode all else until it was resolved. He saw an exit sign ahead, Snaretown Road. Some little burg out here in the sticks, but there was a faded blue sign showing the standard highway gas station symbol. He exhaled and took the exit. At the end of the off-ramp, he saw nothing but empty road running off to the left, but to his right, he could see what looked like a small village about a mile down the road. He turned in that direction. When he reached it, he realized that you couldn't really call it a village. It consisted of just 3 blocks of commercial space. Most locations were unoccupied, he noticed, with a small grid of houses just behind on either side of the road. There couldn't be more than a few hundred people living there in total. He saw the gas station up ahead on the right and pulled in. Fuck. The gas station was closed, yellow tape around all of the pumps. It looked like it had been closed for years. Why didn't they take that sign down on the highway exit? He didn't know if he could make it to the next gas station, wherever that was, with what was left in the tank. There was a convenience market attached to the gas station, and the lights were off inside. But the door opened, and 2 men came out. They were somewhere in their 50s, or maybe earlier 60s, and they were dressed alike in thick plaid shirts, denim jeans, and brown boots. They waved to Clay and approached his car with friendly smiles. Clay rolled down his window. "Hey there, what can we do you for?" Was there a nervous cast to their smiles? "I just pulled off I-270 for gas, but it looks like I'm out of luck here. Do you know where I can find the closest station?" The 2 men began responding at the same time, but then one deferred to the other. "Yes, sir. You want to just turn right back around, the way you came, and if you continue west on the 270, you'll see an exit for, Williams Village Road, just a few miles down, and they've got a couple of stations there. Good luck to you now." They just stared at him awkwardly, and Clay thanked them and pulled out of the gas station back towards the highway, praying he could make it to Williams Village Road. The needle was right on E. He didn't remember the drive from the highway exit to that little village being so far, but he could not even see the interstate from where he was. He also didn't pass through any other towns or villages when he turned off onto Snaretown Road, but now he saw one up ahead. Just a little 3-block main street surrounded by some homes. When he arrived there, he saw the same vacant gas station with the yellow tape around the pumps, the place he just drove away from less than 5 minutes earlier. He tapped the brakes, and when he saw the 2 men standing there in their plaid shirts, he pulled in again and rolled down his window. The nervous smiles were gone. Now they just looked nervous, their faces somewhat ashen. The one who had provided the directions to Williams Village Road spoke up. "Hey there, partner. Did you get turned around or something?" He looked around. Clay had a very strange feeling in his gut. Not a good feeling. "I don't think so. I headed right back down this road towards the highway. I don't know how it could have possibly happened." The 2 men looked at each other briefly. "Well, there's a sneaky turnoff down there that basically loops you back around to here. I'm sure that's what probably happened. You wouldn't be the first. Tell you what, why don't you just make a right turn out of here and stay straight on this road until you reach the 270, and then you just hop on the westbound ramp. You'll be down there at Williams Village Road in no time." After a moment, he nervously added, "Go on now. Good luck." He looked around, and Clay thanked him and followed the directions, which were entirely uncomplicated. Once again, he followed the road back to the interstate, and once again, he drove for a few minutes and arrived back in that same small town with the defunct old gas station. The 2 men in plaid shirts were still standing there by the pumps, staring in his direction. Clay tapped the brakes and pulled in. This time, he killed the engine and stepped out. "Guys, what's going on here?" They stared at each other with grave expressions for a moment, and the one who had done all the talking so far continued to do so. He crossed his arms over his chest and looked down at the pavement. "Well, fella, I'm afraid we have some bad news for you. And you're not going to believe it when I tell it to you now. But eventually, I'm afraid you will know that it's all true." He paused and took a deep breath. Clay's heart started beating harder. The man pointed up to some low wooded hills just beyond the patchwork of homes that made up the little village. "So, for as long as anyone around here can remember, there has been an old house up there in them woods that was home to an old woman and an old man. They came here from somewhere just outside of Mexico City many years ago. They lived way down in Chiapas before that. Old as they were, they lived on as other folks born. Well, after them lived long lives and passed away. The old woman and the old man just kept carrying on. They didn't come down to the village here often, but when they did come down, they always looked a little older. But somehow they were still carrying on." He paused and looked at his partner in plaid. "Charlie, you want to take over here? You can probably tell it better than I can." The other man cleared his throat. "Yeah, sure. So, as Marty was just saying, the old woman and the old man who lived in that old ramshackle house up there in the hills didn't come down here to the village too often. They didn't have to. Now, here's where you're gonna stop believing any of this. But it's true. They didn't have to come down here to the village because if they needed anything, they had a pair of twin gray wolves, and they would just send them down. Those two would get whatever they needed. They would just walk into a store, pull the items that were needed off the shelves, and then growl viciously at someone in the store. They didn't care who, until they packed up all those items and followed those wolves back to the old house up there in the hills." Charlie paused to gauge Clay's reaction to this. Normally, Clay would dismiss this sort of fairy tale stuff instantly, but his head was still spinning from what had just happened when he tried to drive back to the interstate, so he continued to listen, wondering where this was all going. Well, sometimes the old woman and the old man did come down to the village. When the weather was nice and when the 4th of July fireworks were in flight, they were sometimes seen walking slowly together, hand in hand. The locals who lived here for a while all called them the Bruja, her, and the Brujo, him. I don't know how that started. It's just what people called them. Maybe they introduced themselves that way at some time. Anyway, one long summer day many years ago, no one can say just how many, they came down into the village. They were walking slowly down this sidewalk right here when some drunk driver came off the interstate in a big old SUV looking for gas and more beer, and he swerved just enough to run the Bruja down. She was killed instantly, and the Brujo screamed in fury as the man exited his vehicle. Mere moments later, the twin wolves were there, and they had him surrounded, snarling with rage and snapping their teeth at him. The Brujo pointed down at the old woman, and without saying a word, the driver lifted her body and followed the old man back up to the old ramshackle house in the hills, the two wolves trailing behind. He paused there and raised his eyebrows, giving Clay a chance to ask any questions or express his disbelief. Clay just stared back at him, waiting to hear the rest of the tale. Charlie continued. Well, that's when things changed around here for good. For starters, all of the usual deliveries that we received every week, food, gas, prescription drugs, retail products like clothing and shoes and such, just all stopped coming one day. That was the day that we woke up and found that drunk driver crucified by the side of the road just down there. He had a sign hung around his neck that read, "Do not touch me," and no one was brave enough to defy that warning. He stayed up there for almost a year, the crows picking the flesh off his bones. And then one day, there was a storm, and the crucifix was blown down. You can still see the remains of his bones in the tall grass over there. Anyway, after that, no one could leave. There were 188 people living here at that time. Any time that any one of us attempted to drive down towards the interstate and away from Snaretown Road, we ended up right back here, just like you did. Outsiders like you have turned up here over the years, and most of the time they were able to leave. But some, like you, found themselves unable to leave. No one knows why, but I assure you, it is real. You're with us now. I'm sure you seriously doubt all of this, but someday, you will be buried here. Marty nodded, and Charlie paused again, and this time, Clay was done listening to the story. He walked back to the car door. Look, I don't know what kind of scam or joke you're trying to pull here, but I think I've heard enough. I'm leaving now. See you soon, Marty said quietly and waved goodbye. He did not smile. About 5 minutes later, Clay pulled into the gas station again from the opposite direction. Marty and Charlie were still standing right where they were when he left. He put the car in park and rested his forehead on the steering wheel for a short time. Then he exited the vehicle. All right, what the hell is going on here? Charlie just told you. Clay lifted his chin. Okay, well, if there are no supplies coming into town, how do you all survive? What do you eat? Charlie said, come with me, and walked back into the convenience market. It was mostly empty, with the exception of a few chairs and a fold-out table with a deck of cards on top. There was also a cold case, which was almost completely empty, and one of those large freezer chests that most people keep in their basement or garage. Charlie lifted the lid. It was empty. Every morning, me and Marty come down here at 8 o'clock and we check the case. Sometimes there's enough food for everyone. Sometimes there's only half that. On some days, there's just nothing at all. It's almost always frozen dinners and canned goods, but sometimes we find a bag of apples or oranges. And when someone here in town is sick, we will occasionally find a bag of prescription medications. Not always. One day there was a chainsaw, and that afternoon we got hit by a nasty tornado that knocked trees down all around. Knocked down some power lines too, but the power stayed on anyway. We lost our phone lines, cellular signal, and internet connections when it all started, but for some reason the lights have stayed on and the plumbing still works. We just can't reach the outside world. No one knows why, and no one is willing to speak with the Brujo about it. He almost never comes down to the village anymore. When he does, he is always flanked by those two gray wolves. Clay tried to process all of it. The initial instinct of his rational mind was to call bullshit on the whole thing. But he also knew what had just happened each time he attempted to leave the village. He needed air. He stepped outside and leaned against the fender of his car, parked by the dead gas pumps. Charlie and Marty stayed inside and spoke to one another for a little while, and then they walked out and rejoined Clay. "I'm sorry, partner. I didn't catch your name." Clay introduced himself. "Well, Clay, we have lost many of our older neighbors over the years, and not too many new ones have arrived to replace them. The last one before you was Jimmy Gillis from Kansas City, and that was over 4 years ago. As a result, we have quite a few unoccupied houses where we can set you up." Charlie looked at Marty and said, "I'm thinking Benny McCabe's place would do nicely. It's small, but he and his brother did a lot of remodeling work before it all started, and it's still in very good shape." Marty nodded. "Sure. Come on, Clay. It's just down the block here. You can leave your car there for now. It will be fine. Not that you'll ever need it again." Neither of the older men chuckled at this. It was not intended to be a joke. Clay was just trying to make sense of it all as he followed them down the block to the house. He definitely hadn't given up hope of leaving here as soon as possible, but he didn't have a plan. He needed time to think. The house would give him some time to do this on his own. Charlie and Marty showed Clay around the single-story, two-bedroom home. It was nice enough, and afterwards, they walked around the little village for a while and introduced him to some of his new neighbors. Everyone was nice, but everyone was also just off in one way or another. They all seemed a bit haunted, a bit broken, and that was right there on the surface. You couldn't miss it. Afterwards, Clay pulled his car down the block and parked it in front of his temporary new residence. He pulled his suitcase from the trunk and brought it inside. Marty came by with a frozen pizza and 2 cans of soda for his dinner. That night, lying in bed, Clay never even came close to finding sleep. He stared up into the darkness and contemplated his situation, his reality. The more he thought about it, the less he believed it. He was educated and not given to belief in the supernatural. This had to be some kind of trick or illusion. He couldn't understand the purpose, but he didn't want to find out too late that he had been trapped into some weird sacrificial cult or something like that. As the hours went by, he became more and more sure of his conviction that this was not real. He thought about the half-mad people he had met while walking the neighborhood with Charlie and Marty that evening. He had no desire to remain here another second. There had to be a way out. And this story about the Bruja and the Brujo, it was all just too much to accept. This was crazy. He had to be at his father's funeral. He had to get there somehow. He decided to leave. He got up and packed his things back into the suitcase and walked out to the front door. When he opened it, a pair of very large twin gray wolves sat there on the porch, perfectly still except for their yellow eyes. He recoiled instinctively and took a step back. The wolves let out a low growl simultaneously, but remained still. Clay slowly shut the front door to his new home and went back to bed. He would not be at his father's funeral. He knew that now. He wasn't going anywhere. Insatiable darkness. Not the kind that comes when you close your eyes. This is something else. Heavy, dense, like the world's been erased. It's pressing down, sinking through me. I can't breathe, can I? My chest should be moving, doing something. I don't know why I expect that. Then, something else. A noise. No, not a noise. A memory. I love you, babe. A woman's voice, warm, laughing. I can almost feel her next to me, see her face, smell her perfume, something like freshly peeled oranges. Gone. Just like that. I try to hold on to it, but it slips away like smoke. Something aches where the memory was, filling empty spaces, like something lost. Am I lost? No, I'm here. Here in the dark, here in the earth pressing in on all sides. It is cold, deep in my bones, in my flesh. No, it's wrong. I feel something slipping, a part of myself loosening, unraveling, sinking into the dark. I try to reach for it, to grab hold of me, but it's fading fast, sinking below the surface like a drowning man. I tell myself, I'm still here, I'm still someone, but it feels like a lie. Why can't I move? I try to lift an arm, a hand, anything, but everything's sluggish. My fingers claw at nothing, something below, above, heavy, settled. I should be moving, I should be. Then it hits me, clear and sharp, like a broken bone. I'm dead. I'm dead. I don't breathe. My chest is still cold, rotting. A surge of panic hits, a sensation I didn't know I could still feel. I close my eyes, or maybe they were already closed, and try to piece together bits of memory clinging to me. A bright day, a laughing face, a small sticky hand in mine. Gone. Gone before I can feel it. The weight around me presses harder like the ground itself is claiming me, holding me down. I don't know how I know, but I know I shouldn't be here. Shouldn't be this. I should be someone else. Happy birthday. Her voice echoed through me, through the dark. I don't know who she is, but the words cut through me, raw. I remember her laughing, brushing a stray hair behind her ear, her eyes catching the light in that way that always made me stop and stare. She'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "You're my forever." The words are faint now, slipping away, but the warmth of them lingers enough to hurt. I claw at the darkness. I don't mean to. I don't have to. My fingers curl through the dirt, tearing, dragging myself upward. My hands pull, dig, until I feel the damp, cold earth under my nails, grinding against bone. The part of me that still thinks cringes. The other part? It just keeps going. It's like I'm watching from far away, a thought pulsing through my mind. Get out. Get out. Not a choice, an order I can't ignore, from deep inside, where the human parts of me are fading fast. I don't know how long I claw, but the earth loosens above me, cold air seeping in, something other than the dirt. It's thin, stale, the first taste of the world outside, and it makes me feel alive and wrong. My head breaks the surface, and the night air hits me, sharp. I gasp, but the air scrapes through me like glass. The world is blurry, washed out under the moonlight. Grave markers surround me, jagged teeth against the sky. This is where I came from, where they buried me. I'm a corpse, crawling out of my own grave. The thought jolts, but it's distant, almost faint. like something I heard once and already forgot. Then that hunger, the one buried under memories, under voices, stirs, an ache deep in what's left of me, stronger than anything else. I push forward, not thinking, just moving, pulled by instinct, by the urge rising, undeniable. I'm dead. I'm broken. But I need something. I can't stop. I can't go back. The first thing I see, really see, under the sickly cast of the moon, is my hand, if you can call it that. It's a mess of sagging skin stretched over bone, torn in places, bits of muscle clinging to knobby joints, fingers twisted and rigid, blackened nails caked with dirt and something else I don't want to name. The sight, this thing I'm looking at, moving like it's mine, hits me like an electric shock, horror rushing up, strangling me. God, what am I? I try to scream, but all that comes out is a sound, low, guttural, inhuman, like an animal caught in a trap. My hand, my arm. No, this isn't my body. It can't be. The skin hangs in loose, rotting patches where it's not already gone, exposing sinew and yellowed bone. I look down and see my clothes, shredded, filthy, stained with patches that could only be. I shut down the thought, but the nausea twists inside me, pulling me towards something deeper. And then, as the horror swells, something else creeps in. It starts as a twitch, a need, deep and feral, like a slow burn crawling from my center outward. It coils in my stomach, my muscles, my bones, driving out everything else. A hunger, sharp, jagged, specific. I don't just want food. I want something else. Something alive. Number no, don't think it. Don't even say it. You don't want this. But I do. It's already there, growing, swelling, filling the hollow spaces inside until there's nothing left but the hunger. I try to push it down, to hold it back, but it's like caging fire. It flares, a force driving me to move, to push one unsteady, broken foot in front of the other, leaving damp streaks of earth where I walk. Ahead, movement, shadows, soft and slow. A person, bundled in a coat, walking the edge of the graveyard, flashlight in hand. I want to warn them, tell them to turn around, to run. Stop! But my body doesn't listen. I lurch forward. I'm watching, screaming inside, but I'm just a passenger, shackled here, while something else, some twisted, primal urge, takes the reins. My mouth opens, something wet and rotten drips down my chin, spilling onto torn clothes. But I can't stop. I'm close enough now to see him clearly, middle-aged, a little tired, maybe a little sad. He notices me, stops, frowning. Are you okay? His voice shakes, holding the flashlight up, illuminating my face. The light hits his eyes, wide with shock, as he takes in my face. His jaw drops, his lips tremble. Oh my God! Run! I want to scream. Run! But my mouth twists, letting out a moan, low and ragged, and it's enough to send him stumbling back, breath hitching in fear. He turns, but it's too late. My body surges forward, faster than I should be able to move, faster than anything this decayed body should manage. I catch him from behind, fingers sinking into his shoulders. I feel his body seize, the heat of him, the life. The hunger digs deeper, takes control of my hands, my teeth, drive into him, tearing at flesh like it's some kind of drug, some twisted ecstasy. He screams, his voice cutting through the night, but my body just keeps going. My teeth sink into his shoulder, the taste that hits my tongue. It's warm, alive. It fills me in a way nothing else can, something thick and metallic spilling down my throat, coating my mouth, and there's a sick satisfaction that follows, a relief even, like I've finally given in to something I didn't know I wanted. Stop. Please. God, just stop. But there's no stopping. My mouth pulls back, jaws snapping down, over and over, feeling skin and muscle tear, tasting the salt and the heat of his blood. His body twists, weak hands pounding against me, scratching, fighting. But his voice is breaking, giving way to soft, strangled cries. It's him and me, my body devouring his, my mind screaming in silent horror, torn between the repulsion and the craving, both so strong I don't know where one ends and the other begins. I taste his life fading, bit by bit, until he stops moving, limp beneath me. My hands fall to my sides, and I'm left there, panting, mouth and hands covered in his blood, insides roiling with satisfaction and disgust. The hunger settles, just a little, but doesn't go away. It sits there, dark, waiting. I know it'll be back. I look down at what's left of him, the bloodied mess that used to be a person. Pieces of him are scattered around me, stained on my clothes, smeared on my hands, and I feel nothing. Not horror, not revulsion, just emptiness. Number. That's not right. There's something else, something worse. I feel good, sated. A part of me is horrified by this, revolted. But that part feels so far away, drowned by the darkness, the hunger whispering again, like an old friend, like a promise. I don't know what I am anymore, but I know what I'll do. When the hunger comes back, I'll follow. There's blood on my hands, dark, drying, almost black in the moonlight. It stains the shredded skin, sinking into the folds and cracks as if it belongs there. I stare, feeling nothing, but then a name surfaces in my mind, just a whisper that strikes like lightning. Emily. It hangs there, echoing in the dark. A face appears, flickers, blurs, her eyes dark and warm, framed by wavy brown hair. I almost feel her, the laugh that carries through time. She's saying something to me, but her voice is faint as if drowned. I love you. The statement hits me, and with it, shame, thick and heavy, curling around the hunger. And there's a weight pressing on my chest, suffocating, even though I know I can't breathe. Guilt claws through the numbness, pulling her words up from wherever I tried to bury them. But it's gone, leaving only emptiness. My head pounds, trying to piece together fragments of who I was. The flashes come and go, sharper, harder to bear. The kitchen table, a family dinner, laughter, the smell of coffee, her voice as she hums, my wife, her hand on my face, the love so clear I could cry. Then it's gone, and I'm left alone in silence. The hunger stirs again, gnawing through the warmth of memory. Another face flickers into view. A child, a little girl, with a gap-toothed smile, clutching a worn teddy bear, her eyes full of trust. My daughter. I'm holding her hand somewhere bright, laughter filling the air. She'd giggle, squeezing my hand, saying, "Daddy, let's do this forever." And I'd smile, say, "Forever, baby." I feel it, warmth in my chest, something close to happiness, something I can almost touch. The thought stabs through, sharp and real, and the pain that follows is worse than anything I've felt. I want to scream, to claw this feeling out of me, but it's part of me, inseparable. My family, I need to find them. No. And that's when it hits, the full weight of it. They're gone, forever. I'm the one left here, trapped in this rotting shell, condemned to this endless gnawing hunger. A laugh bubbles up, ragged, hollow. I'm dead, but I'm still here, clinging to what's left of them in my mind, like some kind of pathetic penance. And yet, it'll never be enough to fill the void they left. The hunger stirs again, feeding on the pain, growing with each memory, each regret. But there's something else, faint, a whisper from the last remnants of who I was. You don't have to do this. I close my eyes, letting the memories wash over me, feeling their warmth, their pain. And for a moment, the hunger loosens, slipping back, and I'm just me, a person, a father, a husband. I can stop. I'm trying to cling to that sliver of clarity. I'll stop. But the hunger is there, lurking, waiting. I thought I could stop. I was wrong. The hunger comes back, an unrelenting, insatiable beast. It doesn't care about vows or memories. It rises, drowning every thought, every last shred of who I was. All I know is the hunger, expanding, filling me like rot spreading through flesh. I stumble forward, dragging my feet each step closer to the living. A faint glow of streetlights in the distance pulls me, and even as I scream in my mind to turn back, it's too late. My body isn't listening. A man steps out of a car, his whistling dying the second he catches sight of me. For a heartbeat, there's confusion in his eyes, just a flicker of disbelief. But I'm close enough to feel the warmth radiating off him. Run, I think, but he doesn't get a chance. My hands dig into his shoulders, nails scraping bone. He tries to pull back, but I clamp down my teeth, shredding through his skin. Hot blood gushes into my mouth. It's metallic and raw, filling me with a sick, animalistic thrill. He's screaming, a primal sound that echoes through the night, but it only fuels my hunger. My teeth grind deeper, ripping flesh, crunching tendon. His warm blood splatters hot and sticky over my hands, down my chin. No, no. The words spill out, garbled, thick with blood. Somewhere inside, I want to stop, loosen my grip, let him go. But the hunger claws at me, relentless, drowning out any shred of mercy. My hands keep moving, fingers tearing, teeth sinking deeper until I'm lost in the raw, brutal rhythm, ripping, gnawing, consuming. I don't stop until he's just a bloodied, hollowed shell at my feet, a nightmare painted in red. I stagger back, wiping my mouth. I can still taste him, feel him inside like he's become part of me. I stumble away. The hunger gnaws, relentless, twisting inside me. I turn a corner, desperate to escape, but there's someone else, a woman walking her dog, oblivious. No, please, not again. I beg, but it's useless. My body moves on its own, drawn toward her warmth. Her screams slice through the darkness as my hands latch onto her, fingers digging deep, holding tight. I bite down, tearing into her shoulder, the rush of her blood searing through me. It fills me, but somehow only sharpens the hunger, that endless, insatiable need that nothing, not even flesh, can satisfy. Please, I think, let this end. Let me die. But the hunger, it stirs again. I feel it, low and insistent, an ache that won't go away. I close my eyes, hoping for darkness, for an end. But there's nothing but the hunger, whispering. And I know in the deepest part of me that this will never end. I open my eyes, hunger gnawing at my bones, and find myself on a dark street lined with familiar houses. I don't know how I got here. One moment, I was somewhere else, sinking into darkness. Now I'm standing in front of a house that feels known. The porch light flickers weakly, barely alive. My eyes trace the door, the windows, edges worn by years of something I can't name. A tightness clenches in my chest. I'm not supposed to feel anything, but this place presses on me, screaming from a fading part of me I can't reach. I step forward, feet dragging over concrete. My hand, what's left of it, finds the door. I feel the metal, cold, sinking into bone. The door swings open. Inside, the smell hits. Coffee. And something warm, like number stop. But it's too late. I know this smell, this place. My feet pull me inside, down the dark hall. I'm moving without meaning to, my body betraying me, dragged forward. The hunger, that terrible hunger, pushes me on. A sound from upstairs. A creak. Tiny feet across carpet. I know what it is before I see. The hunger digs in, twisting me, urging me up the stairs. I don't want to go, but I can't stop. At the top, a door stands slightly open, a strip of light spilling into the hall. In the center of it, a small shadow shifts. Daddy? The word hangs in the air. Her voice, fragile, like a whisper wrapped in cotton. I try to say her name, to warn her, but all that comes out is a low, guttural growl. Her eyes widen. She steps back, dropping her teddy bear on the floor. Her lips tremble. Daddy? Her face blurs, twisting, fading. But there's something else, a flicker, faint, buried in what's left of me. Love. It's small, fragile, breaking through the cracks, just for a heartbeat. Her name is there, soft and warm. I remember her tiny hand in mine, her laughter, the way she'd look up at me with those trusting eyes, the way she'd curl up against me, safe, warm. I know I would do anything to protect her, anything to keep her safe. But then it's gone, snuffed out as the hunger roars up, an endless gnawing void swallowing everything I was, everything I am, shredding the last scraps of me, chewing up memories, swallowing every last trace of who I was. What's left of me drowns, dragged down, a stone sinking in a black sea. All I hear is the beat of her heart, pulsing warm in the silence. Run. Please, baby, run. But I lurch forward, teeth bared, hands reaching. The hunger takes over. I am gone.